Good evening, quiet riders. Tonight, we'll unfurl the scrolls of a realm shaped by fire and flightwear. Whispers of rebellion echo through warded halls, and courage wears both armor and scars. These are the pages history nearly burned, the truths they tried to bury beneath ash and fear. If slow-burning stories and dragon-shadowed skies help you drift, tap like and subscribe, it keeps the flame alive for the next wandering soul. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time the stars found you. It's a comfort watching our legion of listeners ride across time zones. Now breathe easy, lower the wards, and follow me quietly, Mia, into the heart of Iron Flame. Asterisk, she returns to Basgiath War College not as the girl who once staggered through its deadly parapets, but as something harder, something forged. Violet Sorrengail carries with her not only the scars of survival, but the burden of truths that no one in command wants to face. The sky is overcast as her dragon, Tiern, lands with a thunderous beat of wings, his massive frame drawing uneasy stares. Darna follows. No longer the small, mischievous golden hatchling, but a sleek and radiant force grown far beyond what anyone expected. Even dragons evolve under pressure, and Violet has evolved right along with them. The instant her boots hit the ground, a summons is delivered to her hand. No greetings, no warmth, just one order from Commandant Varish. Report immediately. There's no time to rest, no moment to regroup. And so she walks through familiar halls that now feel foreign, colder than she remembers. Cadets glance at her with something that's not quite respect, it's wariness. Rumors spread faster than fire at Basgiath, and Violet Sorrengail has become more than a rider. She's the girl who walked into the unknown and returned with secrets no one wants to believe. Inside the command hall, the atmosphere is suffocating. Major Varish is already waiting, his posture stiff with authority, eyes hard and calculating. Beside him stands General Melgren, whose seer abilities make every word feel like a test. But it's the third figure in the room that slices deeper than any threat. Dane Ados, her former friend, her betrayer. Violet meets his eyes for the briefest moment, and it's enough. There is no redemption in him, only silence. Cowardice disguised as protocol. The questioning begins, masked as a debrief. But Violet knows better. This isn't about gathering facts, it's about control, about forcing her to deny what she saw, about silencing the truth. They ask about the venom, about the battle outside the wards, about the so-called myths of wielders who draw power from the land instead of the bond. Violet answers, voice steady even when her insides coil. Yes, the Veneen are real. Yes, they're draining the land. Yes, the wards are failing. And no, she won't pretend otherwise. The room chills further with every answer. Melgren's eyes darken, Varsh's jaw tightens. And Dane? He says nothing. At last she's dismissed. Not with acceptance, just barely with tolerance. The message is clear. Her truth is not welcome here. Outside, the sky hasn't changed, but Violet feels the weight of the conversation like an invisible hand around her throat. There's no time to process, no one to confide in. She's thrust immediately back into training combat drills, strategy tests, precision flying, and worse bearings she didn't ask for. She's ordered to spar. With him, Zayden Ryerson. He approaches like a shadow made flesh. Taller than anyone else on the field, eyes like storms held at bay. There's a moment where they simply look at each other. Not speaking, not moving, just breathing in what's changed between them. He draws his sword. So does she. Their blades meet in a blur of motion, steel ringing out with a kind of cruel familiarity. Their rhythm hasn't dulled, but it's sharper now, edged with mistrust. Violet fights harder than she needs to, not for dominance, but for distance. Every strike is a question. Every parry, a refusal. They speak only through the clash of metal. And when it ends, when he disarms her with one final twist, he holds her gaze longer than he should. We don't have time for old wounds. he says, and she replies without flinching, "Then let's make new ones." Later, in the quiet of the dragon compound, Violet finds something like stillness. Tyrn waits, imposing and watchful, the very embodiment of restraint. Anderno, radiant and strange in her maturity, curls beside him, eyes gleaming like twin moons. Violet sits between them. For the first time in days, she allows herself to feel. Tyrn speaks softly, not with his usual sarcasm, but with quiet. Warning. There are things she still doesn't know, things he hasn't told her. Why? She asks. His answer is not in words, but wait. The kind of silence that means danger. Even the dragons are afraid. The next morning brings a hollow kind of normalcy. Classes resume, but the air is different. Less about training, more about control. Leadership wants soldiers who obey, not warriors who think. And Violet, she's never been good at obedience. History class ignores the venin, battle strategy pretends. The border is secure. Even weapons instruction focuses on combat styles suited for human enemies, not magic-wielding monsters. Violet spends her free time in the archives, seeking answers no one wants her to find. She pores over scrolls so old, they crumble at the edges. One in particular draws her attention, a ward map, half faded but still legible. The pattern is strange, the placement's ... deliberate. Someone built the wards not just as barriers, but as a language, a code of protection. And now, that language is being rewritten by the venin. She brings her findings to Rhiannon and Imogen. Both listen in silence. Both agree. They can't rely on command anymore. They make a pact that night. A pact to uncover what's being buried, to protect each other, to fight the real war even, if it means going against their own leaders. Later, as darkness thickens outside the tower, Violet sits by her window, tracing the lines of the ancient map with ink-stained fingers. The breeze is sharp. Storm clouds gather on the horizon, but the storm doesn't break with rain, it breaks with magic. Without warning, the pressure changes, air thickens, the breath catches. A pulse of raw power crashes against her senses. Tyrn roars from the field. Below, a command, not a suggestion. She doesn't hesitate, in moments. She's airborne, and Darna beside them, slicing through the night sky. Xaden appears beside her, silent and grim. Already knowing this isn't a drill. What they find makes her stomach lurch. A southern outpost completely abandoned. No blood, no bodies, no noise. Just ... absence. But the ground speaks volumes. Charred. Runes circle the perimeter. Magic scorched deep into the soil and symbols she doesn't recognize, but that Andarna growls at. Even she, with all her mysterious power, recoils. Violet kneels and touches the earth. It's not just burned. It's hollow. The magic has been drained. And something foul lingers beneath it, like rot beneath polished stone. Xaden steps beside her. His face is carved from stone. This was a test, he says. They're pushing the boundaries, seeing what will let them take. And the worst part? There's no one here to stop them. No command team. There's no response. Just the riders. Just her. She flies home in silence. The fire that burns in her blood now is not fear, it's rage. Because they're losing. Not from weakness, but from denial. Back. At Beziath, the night is still, as the stars indifferent. She returns to her room and finds something waiting. A folded scrap of parchment. No seal, no signature, just one message, written in ink as black as venin flame. You've seen the beginning. What comes next will burn you alive. She doesn't sleep. Because she knows one truth above all now. Beziath is no longer her sanctuary. It's her battlefield. And this war has only just begun. The message stays with her. It's still in her pocket when she walks into the mess hall the next morning. Though she hasn't eaten, hasn't slept, hasn't even unclenched her fists since she read it. You've seen the beginning. What comes next will burn you alive. Violet replays those words over and over. They're not just a threat, they're a promise. Someone knows what she saw at the outpost. Someone was close enough to leave the message undetected. Which means the venin might already be inside the walls of Beziath, and no one seems to care in the morning light. Bisgayath looks deceptively. Normal. Cadets laugh. Some spar, some study. The routines continue, machine-like. The storm from last night. Forgotten. Buried under tradition and ignorance. But for Violet, nothing is the same. Every glance feels suspicious. Silence, too. Sharp. Even Rhiannon's warm presence can't pierce the edge. She's wrapped herself in. Because how do you survive in a place where your greatest threat isn't just beyond the wards, it's within the command? A new training schedule is posted. Grueling. Relentless. Clearly designed to break even the strongest riders. Violet scans it, sees her name paired again with Xaden in the advanced aerial drills. And she knows immediately this isn't coincidence. It's strategy. Varish is pushing her, hard, maybe trying to expose her, or worse, set her up to fail. Still she goes. She always goes. Out on the field, dragons gather. Their presence commands reverence, but even the dragons seem uneasy. Their movements are sharp, clipped, tails flicking with tension. It's subtle, but Violet notices. Tyrn lowers his head as she approaches. There's no greeting, just a quiet mental pulse of concern. Endarna hovers nearby, her golden scales almost. Too bright under the sun? She stays close to Closend. Violet senses her anxiety. Dragons don't get scared easily. But Endarna, she's vibrating with it. Xaden arrives moments later, dark as ever, his armor gleaming like obsidian. His shadows slither along his arms, like restless ghosts. He doesn't greet her either, just mounts scale and waits. The tension between them crackles. They launch together into the sky, spiraling into combat formations, weaving through clouds and sunlight. But Violet can't find her rhythm. She keeps flinching. Her timing is off. Her mind too full of threats written in ink and magic she doesn't yet understand. They're told to perform. Synchronized barrel rolls with offensive fire maneuvers complex, dangerous. They fail the first. Attempt on the second, Violet almost collides with another pair. By the third, Varish is screaming from below. "You're slipping, Sorrengail?" he bellows. "You'll kill your dragon if you fly like that in battle." Violet grits her teeth. Nirn growls in the back of her mind, a sound like thunder pressed into her skull. "Focus, Vi. You are stronger than this." But is she? She can still feel the hollowed ground beneath that outpost. The wrongness. The note. The truth that no one else seems to acknowledge. She lands hard, knees jarred, hands trembling, and Xaden is already there. Dismounting, eyes locked on her like he's watching a landslide in slow motion. "Need to pull it together," he says lowly, too quiet for anyone else to hear. She glares at him. "I'm not the problem." "No, but you're carrying too many of them." She walks away. Back in her room, she tries to read, but her eyes keep returning to the message. What comes next? There's a knock. She stiffens, reaches for her dagger, but it's Rhiannon. She enters quietly, glancing around like she expects. Spies to leap from the shadows. "I heard about the drills. You okay?" she asks. No. Honesty. Sharp and simple. Rhiannon doesn't try to fix it. She just sits with her. Eventually, she reaches into her satchel and pulls out a small book. "Archivists gave me this," she says. "From the Southern Archives. It's written in Old Navarrian." She opens it. Drawings. Symbols. Runes. Violet leans closer. Her breath catches. One of the symbols matches what she saw scorched into the earth at the outpost. A jagged ring encircling. A spiked triangle. She remembers it burning into her vision. Beneath her fingertips, the veins of the land itself. "What is it?" she whispers. "According to this, it's an ancient seal, used to anchor protective spells." Violet stares at the page. Everything sharpens. The wards, the map, the Vinin. Patterns it all begins to connect. They're not just draining magic, she realizes. They're rewriting the spells that protect us. That night, she and Rhiannon sneak into the upper archives. It's forbidden. It's highly punished. But Violet's mother once told her that laws are only useful until they stand in the way of truth. They work by candlelight, surrounded by scrolls so old they crumble at touch. Hours pass, dust settles. Pages turn, then dash an entry. an ancient text, written by one of the original ward makers. It speaks of stones seeded in blood, bonded to dragons, protected by riders. The spells were meant to outlast time, but only if unbroken. And worse, there's a note, scrawled in the margins by some long-dead historian. If the seals break, the rot will return. Violet feels the chill of those words slide down her spine. This isn't just about Venin. It's about the foundation of their world crumbling under its own secrets. She copies the passage, hides it in her boot, and returns to her dorm just before dawn. The next day, everything is different. In battle brief, the instructors announce a change. Mandatory simulations for all rider squads. War scenarios using real dragon coordination. Flame and mana. Violet is assigned a mission unit. It's not just riders, but a healer, a weapons mage, a scribe, a full field unit. It's clear they're being prepped not for training, but for war. And worse, Violet is named as commanding officer. Command, responsibility, not by request, but by necessity. Some cadets protest, loudly. One even steps forward and scoffs. She shouldn't lead, she's cracked. Violet doesn't flinch. And yet I'm still here. Later, when she asks Xaden if he had anything to do with her being promoted, he shakes his head. I told them nothing, he says. But they're watching you, Vi. Every move you make, every mistake. She doesn't ask if he's watching her too. She already knows he is. The simulation begins at dawn. A full-scale, magical terrain field is generated complete with storms, illusions, and enemies created by instructors using controlled spell constructs. Violet's mission: retrieve a wounded rider, extract safely across hostile terrain, and avoid a scripted Venin ambush. The scenario is brutal. They lose 2 in the first half hour. Not fatally, but enough to count as dead in the sim. The traps are clever, the illusions terrifyingly accurate. At one point, Violet finds herself face to face with a spectral version of her mother. Cold eyes, silent disappointment. She almost falters, almost breaks, but she doesn't, because real Venin don't offer illusions. They take, they rot. She pushes through, leads her team through fog and fire. When the ambush finally comes, she doesn't run, she fights. And so does Terran and Indarna, and the rest of the dragons. Summoned to defend, the simulation ends with her team battered but victorious. Barely, but it's enough. Afterward, General Melgren watches her from across the training field, eyes narrowed, like he sees too much. Not enough. She stares back, daring him to speak. He does. Back in her quarters. Violet finds another message. Not on parchment this time. It's carved into her desk. Rough, splintered lines. You passed the first test. Let's see how you burn. She doesn't scream. She doesn't tell anyone. She just reaches for her dagger and carves her own reply beside it. I don't burn. I ignite. The message carved into her desk is still there the next morning. A splintered warning scorched into wood. Violet doesn't try to erase it. Let them see. Let them all know. She's not afraid of shadowed threats whispered from the dark. She's seen what real monsters look like. It's that they don't hide behind carved taunts. They wear uniforms and smile in meetings. She eats quickly, barely tasting anything. Rhiannon joins her, eyes rimmed with concern. There's no need for words. They're both thinking the same thing. Someone within Basgiath is watching. It isn't just the faculty. After breakfast, Violet is pulled from regular training and ordered to the flight fields. Not by her instructors, by Commandant Varish. When she arrives, he's already waiting. His uniform sharp, posture rigid, expression unreadable. Few other cadets are scattered nearby, equally confused, equally tense. Then the orders come, a mid-range recon flight. No simulation this time, no magic-generated enemy. Real flight, real danger. Violet stiffens. This isn't normal, especially not for early year cadets. But Varish offers no explanation, just coordinates, just expectation. Terran lowers his head. Senses something Violet can't quite name. Not danger, not yet, but distrust. As they lift into the sky, the winds bite colder than usual. The assigned flight path heads southeast toward an area near the outskirts of what used to be securely warded territory. Violet doesn't miss the implications. This mission isn't about reconnaissance. It's about something else, something unspoken. They fly in pairs, distant from one another, but visible within range. The air grows thin the farther they travel. There's a stillness here that Violet doesn't like. Then Turn halts mid-air wings. Locking tight, and Darna circles lower, agitated. Violet sees it at the same time Tyrn does below. At the edge of a shattered ridge lies the blackened remains of an outpost. Another one. There's no smoke, no heat. Just ash. Scorch marks in spiraled patterns identical to those she saw 2 nights ago. The ground looks wrong, not just burned. Dash withered. Tyrn growls low in her mind. This was recent, she sends a pulse. To the other riders nearby, one responds. To don't. That's when she knows. This wasn't just a recon mission, it was a setup. Tyrn dives and Darna follows, her wings shimmering with crackling gold light. They land fast, silently. Violet draws her blades. Her breathing slows. Every instinct screams that this place is wrong. Then she sees it. A shadow moving just past the tree line. Too fast, too smooth, not human. But not attacking, watching. They're studying her. Tyrn snarls, flame rumbling in his throat, but Violet stops him. She wants to know what they're doing here. What they want. Why they haven't run or attacked. The Venin raises a hand. It's just one. Like a gesture of truce, and then it vanishes. Not into the forest. Not into shadow. It simply disappears. Like it was never there. Violet shakes as she climbs. Back onto Tyrn. This wasn't an accident. The recon mission. The outpost? The Watcher. Someone at Basgayath knew exactly what they were sending her into. When she returns, Resh is waiting. She delivers her report with icy calm, facts only. Nothing more. He barely glances at it before dismissing her. No questions. No concern. As if this was all expected, she leaves with her jaw clenched, blood roaring in her ears. Later, she finds Xaden in the training yard, going through blade drills with a speed and aggression that borders on reckless. She doesn't ask how he knows. He always knows. They sent you out there to be watched, he says without turning, or to see if you'd break. I won't, she replies. He finally stops and looks at her. Good, because this isn't over. She wants to ask what. He's hiding what he knows, but the wall between them hasn't cracked yet, and so she says nothing. For now, that night, she dreams of Ashdot, not fire, not war. Just ash falling like snow over a dead land, and voices whispering her name from beneath. Yet in the morning, she wakes with a new assignment. Shadow maneuver training solo. Again, unusual. Again, designed to isolate her. She meets Imogen in the southern training grounds, where instructors test stealth riding and silent flight techniques. Imogen is sharp. Her eyes flicking across the field as if checking for listening spells. She's tense more than usual. They train without words, focusing on body movements, silent signal calls, precision drills. But Violet can feel the pressure closing in. Halfway through the lesson, Imogen finally speaks. They're watching you, Vi. Not just the command. The cadets, too. Some think you're the reason for the changes in the wards. Others think you're cursed. Violet snorts, humorless. I'm not cursed. I'm informed. Same thing here. She lets the words hang. Imogen's warning is clear. The fear is spreading. It's not the Venin people fear. It's knowledge. Back in the barracks, Violet finds another note. Not on her desk this time, but under her pillow. A single word, written in the same hand as before. Soon, that night she doesn't sleep. Instead, she goes back to the archives. She meets Rhiannon there, both of them moving through the shadows like ghosts. They dig deeper into the ancient histories, searching for records about early Venin sightings, the first signs of ward decay, anything that might explain the resurgence. What they find chills them both. A text written during the first warding era, describes how Venin infiltration always begins from within, not just through physical breach, but through corruption of memory and morale. Lies, distortions, manipulation. The Venin don't just attack, they erode. Violet copies the passage and commits it to memory. They're not dealing with an invasion, they're dealing with infestation, and the rot has already begun. In the days that follow, the pressure mounts. Violet's training sessions grow. Harsher, her instructors colder. Even the other cadets keep their distance, but she doesn't bend, she fights. Harder, she studies longer. She doesn't sleep, but she prepares, because now she understands what's happening. They're not trying to kill her. They're trying to discredit or to isolate her, to make her question herself until she becomes the unreliable one, the dangerous cadet, the unstable rider. She won't give them the satisfaction. At the end of the week, there's a general assembly called Every Rider. Every year, the command stands tall on the stage. Flanked by Melgren and Varish, Violet's name is called. Her heart stops for a breath. She steps forward. Varish announces a new unit. Formation and experimental team structure for field leadership development. Violet will command it. On the surface, it sounds like a promotion, but everyone sees the truth. It's exile. It's thinly veiled. She'll be separated from her usual squad, placed with a mixed group of riders and support cadets, far from anyone who knows or trusts her. A message. You're not part of us anymore, she meets. Varish's eyes. He smirks, but she smiles, because they've made their move. Now she gets to make hers. The auditorium is still echoing with whispers when Violet steps off the stage. A new unit, a new command, a public move that feels like a thinly disguised exile. But if Commandant Varish thought assigning her to a newly formed squad would humiliate, or contain her, doesn't understand Violet Sorrengail at all. She's already survived worse than exhalation. The assembled cadets watch her return to her seat with wary eyes. Some are afraid of her. Others are suspicious. But none of them move. None speak. The message has been delivered. Violet is dangerous. Not because of what she's done, but because of what she knows. After the assembly disperses, Rhiannon finds her outside the hall. Her expression is a careful balance of concern and fury. They're not even hiding it anymore, she says. No, Violet replies. Because they don't have to. Rhiannon squeezes her shoulder. Whatever this new unit is, it's still yours. And that, more than anything, anchors Violet. She's not going to fight this battle on her knees. She's going to lead. The next morning, her orders are waiting. She's to meet her new squad in an unused sector of the field barracks area, usually reserved for early year overflow. The buildings are older, colder, forgotten, much like the riders assigned to her when she arrives. She's met with 5 unfamiliar faces. None of them speak at first. Some glance at her with curiosity, others with thinly veiled resentment. Clear they weren't given much choice. The roster includes Riddick, sarcastic, wiry second year, with fast hands and faster opinions. Sawyer, tall, quiet, with the hardened eyes of someone who's lost more than he admits. Nessa, calm and precise, her armor pristine, her voice sharper than her blade. Hyacinth, the squad's assigned scribe, observant and silent, already, watching Violet like she's taking notes on how she breathes. And Sloane Ryerson. Violet stiffens. Sloane's Aiden's cousin, younger, colder, with the same steel in her spine and shadows in her gaze. The resemblance is uncanny, but the attitude is not. Sloane makes no attempt to hide her disdain. "You're the reason my brother died," she says by way of greeting. Violet feels the air in her lungs lock tight. She knows Sloane lost someone in the Revolution, one of the marked ones executed. In retaliation by the kingdom, she just didn't know who, and now she understands. Sloane doesn't want a leader. She wants someone to blame. "I'm sorry," Violet says quietly, "but you're wrong." Sloane doesn't respond. She just turns and walks into the barracks without another word. The rest of the squad exchanges glances. No one laughs. No one relaxes. Violet exhales slowly. So this is her unit. Over the next few days, she trains them, or tries to. They resist at first. Challenge her orders, question her decisions, especially Sloane. His contempt is a blade sharpened with every passing hour. But Violet doesn't break. She earns their grudging respect. The only way Bascaeth teaches, through results. She anticipates their mistakes before they make them. She predicts tactical errors in their formations. She beats Riddick in a sparring match and holds her own against Nessa's brutal blade work. Bit by bit, resistance softens. Not into friendship, but into discipline. Trust comes later if it comes. At all, during one of their first full unit drills, they're paired against another squad in a mock hostage scenario. The opposing team underestimates them, expects disarray, broken communication. But Violet executes a feint through a false flank, sends Riddick on a perimeter arc, and signals Nessa to draw the attention of the commander while she and Sawyer slip. In through the side, it's brutal, clean. Over in minutes, they win. The instructor overseeing the drill doesn't offer praise. He just marks something on his clipboard and walks away. But Riddick mutters, "Well, I'll be damned." And for the first time, someone smiles. At night, Violet returns to her quarters, bone deep, exhausted but too wired to sleep. She finds Tiernan waiting in the field, his scales dark under the moonlight. And Darna lies beside him, wings tucked, breathing slow. Violet curls beside them and presses a hand to Tiernan's massive side. His warmth seeps into her fingers. "They're pushing you," he rumbles in her mind. "They think they can fracture me. Then let them try." She smiles without humor. "You sound like Zayden," Tiernan huffs. "And he sounds like me." They sit in silence a while, and then, like smoke on the breeze, Violet feels it again. That tugging sensation behind her ribs. A warning, she turns. A figure stands at the edge of the field, hooded. Still, she stands slowly. But when she takes a step toward it, vanishes. Again, the same presence as the outpost. Watching, always watching. She doesn't tell anyone, not yet. Later. In the week, she's summoned to an unscheduled meeting with General Melgren. Not Varish. Not her squad leader, Melgren, when she arrives at the administrative tower. His office is dim, lit only by a single lantern on his desk. He gestures for her to sit. She does, spine stiff, eyes sharp. He studies her for a long time before speaking. "You're causing a ripple." "I'm following orders," she says. "Are you?" His tone is mild, almost amused. "But there's something else under it, something colder." "I read the reports from your new squad. Efficiency is up. Tactical cohesion is above average. No infractions, no insubordination. And yet," taps his fingers on the desk. "You don't seem to understand your role here." Violet leans forward. "Enlighten me." He smiles, slow and chilling. "Your job is not to win, it's to serve. When you forget that, people start to disappear." She doesn't flinch. "You can threaten me all you want," she says, voice low, "but I've already lost everything you could take." He chuckles. "I doubt that." She's dismissed shortly after. No reprimand, no warning. Just that smile. That shadow of something unsaid. She walks back to the barracks with fire burning in her throat. They won't kill her outright, but they'll try to make her forget who she is. And that more than any blade. It's the deadliest weapon they wield. Back. With her unit, things are changing. Sloane still keeps her distance. But she no longer openly challenges orders. Riddick begins to joke again. Nessa sharpens, her blades beside Violet without comment. It's not camaraderie, it's something more dangerous. It's unity. And command is starting to notice. She finds another. Note later hidden inside her issued supply pouch. This one is shorter. They'll turn them against you next. She reads it twice, then burns it, because she already knows, and she's already planning. Something shifts in her unit after that second successful mission. It's not trust. Trust is a slow, it's wounded thing. But it's momentum. A turning tide. The beginnings of loyalty earned not through rank, but through fire. They see Violet now. Not just the writer with a notorious name, not the girl who came back from the dead, but the leader who gets them home alive, still. Violet doesn't let herself enjoy the fragile camaraderie. She can't afford to. Not when every moment feels like a countdown to something she can't quite name. There are still eyes in the dark. Still footsteps that stop when she turns around. Still notes with no fingerprints. The next mission assignment arrives without fanfare. Another simulation, though this one is different. No dragons, no fire. This one is pure ground tactics, urban incursion, and defense. A scenario modeled after a real village that once stood along the southern border, a village that no longer exists. Violet stares at the name on the mission file. Laurel and she knows that name. Everyone does. The first town lost to the Venin resurgence, and still, Command calls it a training exercise. She reads the parameters twice. The mission: defend the town square, evacuate non-combatants, and hold position for 3 hours. But she knows it's not about the objective. It's about pressure, about what breaks first, the strategy or the leader. She gathers her squad before dawn. They gear up in silence. No jokes, no grumbling. Just quiet focus. Sloane straps a dagger to her thigh without meeting. Violet's eyes. Riddick mutters something about how simulated towns still bleed, and they head out. The simulation zone is brutal, built like a real village weathered stone. Houses, narrow alleys, crooked market stalls. Even the wind feels different here, colder, sharper, laced with magic as they take positions. Violet splits the squad. Nessa and Sloane take east. Riddick and Sawyer anchor the west. Hyacinth remains with her in the makeshift command post. They build barricades, mark exit routes, place warning flares. Everything textbook, but nothing about this feels like a textbook scenario. When the attack begins, it's fast. Too fast. Not staged. Not staggered like previous exercises. The assault comes all at once. Wave after wave of enchanted construct shadows with steel teeth and screaming magic. Violet doesn't have time to question, only to act. She rotates the squad mid-battle, pulling Sawyer from the front to stabilize. An overwhelmed flank. She personally reinforces the east barrier, fighting alongside Sloane in grim silence. For the first time, they move in tandem. Blade and breath. Not trust. Not forgiveness. But survival. Hyacinth relays orders between skirmishes. Riddick covers retreating civilians, more illusions, but real enough to scream when the enemy closes. In hours pass, the sun arcs and falls, and still they hold. By the time the final horn sounds, the entire squad is bruised, bloody, barely standing, but they're victorious. Barely they collapse outside the simulation zone. Some sit, some lie down. Nessa drinks water like it's wine. Riddick curses in 6 languages. Even Sloane mutters, "Not bad," as she wipes a cut from her cheek. Violet doesn't smile, because she sees it first. A group of command staff at the edge of the field, observing, not evaluating, not cheering, just watching. And one of them Melgra nods once, as if confirming something long suspected. She doesn't like that nod, not at all. Later that night, Violet visits the archives again. Not for history, for records. She's looking for anything on Laurelin. Not just battle reports, but names, faces, who lived there, who died. The clerk at the front desk hesitates when she gives her request. That file is restricted, he says. Requires 2 levels of clearance. Stares him down. And if I told you I've already bled for that clearance? He doesn't argue. He just hands her the scroll in the flickering candlelight of her desk. Violet reads the report, and it confirms what she feared. Laurelin wasn't lost in battle. It was sacrificed. No backup. No reinforcements. The warning signs were ignored by command. The town wasn't evacuated. It was left undanned. She scans the casualty list. Dozens of names. Entire families. Including a young girl, Rhea Rearson. Sloane's sister. Her throat tightens. The report ends with a chilling note. Unconfirmed. Venin presence. No survivors. Violet copies it word for word and folds it into a hidden page of her journal. The enemy isn't just on the outside, it's in the silence, in the omissions, and the names erased and rewritten. She walks back to the barracks in the dark, her fingers tight around the edge of her blade. The next day, command shifts focus again. More drills, more missions. More exercises designed to wear them down, day after day. Violet notices the pattern, now each task, more physically punishing, each one stripping away time for rest or reflection. It's not training, it's conditioning, one by one. Riders are pulled from squads and reassigned. Some vanish entirely. Imogen brings news from another quadrant. Entire wings of cadets are being reshuffled. Their bonds with dragons strained by forced relocation, and some dragons are beginning to resist, refusing to fly, refusing to fight. It's happening, the beginning of the unraveling, and no one in command says a word. One evening, after a brutal endurance flight, Violet finds Xaden waiting outside her barracks. His arms are folded, his eyes unreadable. They haven't spoken in days. He doesn't ask permission to enter inside. He speaks first. They're moving fast. She nods. They're afraid. He leans against the wall. They should be. She watches him. Did you know about Laurelin? His silence is all the answer she needs. Her voice is quiet. You didn't tell me? Yeah. Would you have stayed focused if I did? She wants to yell, wants to scream, but she doesn't, because part of her already knew. Don't keep things from me, she says. I'm not trying to protect you, he replies. I'm trying to keep you alive. Then trust me enough to do it with the truth. Is something flickers across his face. Pain, regret, something buried too deep for words before he leaves. He says you need to prepare for what's coming. All of it. And then he's gone. She doesn't sleep. Instead, she takes out the old warding maps and overlays them with the locations of recent attacks. The pattern isn't just tactical, it's surgical. They're dismantling the boundaries one by one, not randomly. Not chaoticali. Purposefully, she stares at the map until her vision blurs. And finally, she understands. They're not just breaking the wards, they're isolating Basgiath, cutting it off from support. It's from knowledge, from help, and when it falls. There will be no one left to challenge the lie. The days blur. Training, drills, simulations, missions. It's a storm of motion. It's designed to leave no room for questions, no time to breathe, no space to think. And that's exactly what Command wants. Violet sees it now with perfect clarity. They're flooding cadets with constant physical exhaustion to drown out rising doubts, to distract from the cracks spreading across the foundation of Basgiath itself. And yet, despite the weight of this machine pressing down on them, her unit holds. Barely. They've stopped asking questions. But they haven't stopped watching, and Violet feels it in every glance, every silence, every moment too long between breaths, especially from Sloane. The girl's grief is a blade still unsheathed. Her hatred isn't dulled by shared victories or mutual wounds. It's sharpened by them. But Violet lets her keep it. She understands what grief like that can do. The next mission comes quietly, an escort assignment. Simple on the surface. Too simple. They're to accompany a group of healers and scribes to a nearby outpost. Replenishment run? Minimal risk. Short distance. But Violet feels it from the moment they leave the gates. The way the route takes them through a low Valapur visibility. No high ground. The way their support escort is delayed. Again the way. Her gut clenches with every step forward. Tyrn flies overhead, silent and grim. Even Indarna doesn't hum with her usual curiosity. Halfway to the waypoint, it happens. An ambush. Real, not simulated. This is no training exercise. Violet sees the strike from the trees before the others. Shimmering shadows venom, or something close to them. She shouts the command. And everything erupts. Magic arcs. Flames roar. And for a moment, everything is chaos. Sawyer goes down, wounded but alive. Hyacinth pulls a healer behind cover, Sloane fast. Furious kills 2 before she even breathes, and Violet, in the middle of it all, realizes this was a test, not just for them. For her, she gets them out, barely by the time they reach the outpost. Bloodied and gasping, the enemy has vanished. Not defeated, just gone, and the healers were scathed, because they were never the target. When they return, Violet files her report. She includes everything: TIMZs, numbers, magic use, ambush location, and just like before, no questions are asked. No follow-up is given. The report vanishes into silence, so she starts keeping her own. Records, hidden ones, detailed, names, missions, outcomes, because the real war isn't being fought. On the front lines, it's being waged in the shadows. That night, a meeting is called, not by command. By Exiden, Violet follows his summons beyond the training fields. Through old stone corridors long since fallen out of use, the walls are thick with dust and disuse. She finds him waiting in an abandoned strategy chamber, lit by only a few flickering flames. He's not alone. Imogen is there, Liam's sister. Her loyalty wrapped in armor and silence, and Riddick, surprisingly. And Garrick Saden's ever-constant shadow. Violet steps inside. Her heart thunders in her ears. "Tell me this isn't a trap," she says, half-dashed smiling. Exiden meets her gaze. Depends on your definition. He lays a map on the table. It's not just of Bascaeth, of the entire warded territory. And for the first time, Violet sees it not as defense but as containment. Xaden begins to speak. They're moving again. Beyond the eastern wards, draining magic, breeding monsters in the places no one watches. Imogen adds quietly, "We intercepted a message. They're planning a full breach before winter." Violet stares at the map. "That's 2 months," Garrick nods grimly. "And no one in command will acknowledge it." She already knows why. Because acknowledging it means admitting they've been lying. Because fear is easier to control when. It's directed inward. Xaden slides a second sheet forward. It's a list of locations, towns, outposts, every one of them marked cleared or relocated, every one of them gone, and some she's never even heard of. "You've been watching them longer than anyone else," he says. "You've seen the patterns. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" She looks down, then answers, "Expose them." He nods once. Approval. Agreement. Like a pact made wordlessly in flame. When she returns to the barracks, everything is quiet. Too quiet. She checks on her squad. All present. All asleep. Except Sloane. Her bed is empty. Violet's heart twists. She searches the training fields first. The mess hall. Even the flight platforms, nothing. And then she hears it. A scream. Cut short, it echoes from the northern perimeter, the shadowed edge of Basgaeth, where the old trees meet forgotten stone. She runs. Tyrion roars from somewhere overhead. It's already alert. She finds Sloane at the base of an old wall, standing, not injured, staring down at something, a figure dead. Or unconscious. She can't tell. Violet approaches slowly. "What happened?" Sloane's voice is hoarse, flat. "He followed me. Said I should have died with my sister." Violet kneels beside the body. A male cadet. Older, bruised, not dead. But close and in his hand. Blade laced with something black and slick. Poisoned. Boys in double quotes, "Why didn't you call for help?" Sloane looks at her, expression unreadable. "I wanted to." Violet places a hand on her shoulder. "But you didn't have to."
They don't report it instead.
They leave the cadet outside the infirmary doors, anonymous. And when Violet finally crawls back into bed, she stares at the ceiling until the sun rises, because the truth is burning through her. Now this war, this rot, it's not waiting at the gates. It's already here. And it's not just magic. It's belief. A system built on obedience. Drowning. In silence, ruled by men who'd rather kill the truth than admit they were wrong. She's done playing the part. Done staying quiet. If they want war, she'll give them one. Morning breaks. It's harsh and colorless. The kind of morning that feels like it's borrowed time. Violet walks the halls of Basgiath with her shoulders squared and her head high, but inside the pressure is mounting. Her dreams are filled with burning, towns and dragons screaming into empty skies. And her waking hours, just as haunted. She hasn't told anyone what happened with Sloane and the poisoned blade, not even Rhiannon. Some truths grow heavier when spoken aloud. Instead, she trains, harder than ever, bleeds, bruises, thinks, calculates. Because now it's not just about surviving this war, it's about making sure there's something left after it ends. At breakfast, Command posts a new notice: all units to be tested in combat. Strategy: trials immediate effect. A quiet murmur moves through the dining hall. Cadets exchange looks, barely concealing their nerves. Violet keeps her expression blank, but she knows exactly what this is. Another attempt to isolate, to push her unit harder, to expose fault lines. When her name is called, it's not for a trial, it's for a special evaluation. Alone, of course, she reports to an old war room deep beneath the strategy tower. The air down there smells like dust and forgotten victories inside. A panel of officers waits, including General Melgren and Commandant Varish. The room is silent, save for the scratching of a quill. They don't explain the rules, just place a set of carved pieces in front of her on the table dragons. Battalions, terrain markers, it's a full war map. They set the scenario: an allied town under siege, limited forces, no magical support, an evacuation window of 4 hours. They want to see what she'll do. She doesn't hesitate. Violet builds her. Defense in layers uses terrain to bottleneck the enemy, evacuates civilians first, then splits her forces between rear hold and forward distraction. It's a textbook countermaneuver. With one deviation, she suggests burning the towns. Main storage buildings preemptively. Why? Melgren asks, arching a brow. Violet meets his gaze. So the enemy gains nothing, even if they take it. He leans back, hands steepled. Cold logic. No, she replies. Practical survival. The exercise ends without a word. They dismiss. Her like a storm about to break. Outside, Rhiannon waits. They did it again, didn't they? Violet doesn't answer. She just nods once, eyes hard. The two of them walk toward the library, slipping through side corridors. But before they can reach it, a courier intercepts Violet with another summons. This time, the War College headmaster. Himself, in the towering stone office that smells of old ink and dust, the headmaster studies her with deep-set eyes. He's older than she expected. Slower. But there's a sharpness in him that hasn't dulled. You've caused quite the disturbance, he begins, folding his hands over a pile of parchment. I didn't realize competence was such a threat. Violet replies, her voice carefully neutral. A faint smile touches his lips. You're the daughter of General Sorrengail. We're never going to be treated normally. But this, he slides a sealed letter across the desk. It's marked with an unfamiliar crest. Your name is circulating, he continues. Outside these walls, Violet doesn't touch the envelope yet. Circulating how? In certain war councils, letters passed between kingdoms, in places where dragons have not flown in years, that gets her attention. Why? Because you survived. Because you're bonded to 2 dragons. Because some believe that makes you chosen, and others believe it makes you dangerous. Violet's fingers twitch. And you, she asks. He leans in. I think you might be both, later. She reads the letter in private. It's a request for her presence at an upcoming summit between dragon-bound leaders. Not official Basgiath command. Something older. Older than this school? It's older than even the kingdom's military hierarchy. A coalition of dragons and riders who remember the real history, before it was cleaned up in scrolls. The letter doesn't. Ask for loyalty. Just for eyes open wide enough to see what's coming. That night, she finds herself walking the training fields again, drawn by instinct. Tyrion is waiting massive, eternal, his flame resting behind ancient eyes, and Darna curls beside him like moonlight. She rests a hand on Tyrion's scales. They know about me. They always did. Even outside Bisgayath. Good. She looks up. Think I'm meant for something more? I know you are. The words settle like gravity. Heavy, inevitable, and still. Not a burden. A purpose. The next morning, Sloane corners her in the mess hall. I know what you did, she says, low and quiet. Violet turns. Fork frozen mid-dash air, Sloane continues. You didn't report him, the cadet who attacked me. Violet sets her fork down. No, she says. I didn't. Why? Because I saw what it did to you. Because I know what it would have cost you. Sloane stares at her for a long time, then says the last thing Violet expects. Thank you. Fragile pause. Then we're not friends. I know. I don't hate you. Not completely. Violet nods once. That's a start. Their next mission briefing is brutal. A full-scale field deployment simulation with outside observers. Not just instructors this time. Civilians, dignitaries, influential eyes. The kind that write the future in ink and blood. Violet Squad is assigned a forward unit role. Minimal support and maximum exposure. It's clearly meant to break them. But Violet steps forward, looks at her teammate Sloane, Edik, Nessa, Hyacinth, Sawyer, and says, let's show them what we look like when we win. The simulation begins at dawn. They move like a machine, now every breath synced. Every strike anticipated. They take the high ground, control the pass, force a bottleneck, and use explosive wards to thin enemy ranks. It's violent, unrelenting, exhausting. But they don't falter. Not once. And when the horns sound to end the trial, Violet's unit is standing tall, bleeding, battered, but victorious. Even the dignitaries applaud. Only Varish watches from the shadows. Arms folded, expression unreadable, and when Violet meets his eyes, he looks. Worried, good that night, Violet writes in her journal by candlelight. But instead of just recording events, she writes a message, a warning. Not for herself, for whoever survives her. Because this isn't just about her. Anymore, it never was. This is about the future, about a truth buried so deep in silence that only fire can unearth it. She caps her pen, closes the book, and as sleep finally takes her. She dreams of a world where no one has to burn to be seen. There's something eerie about quiet after a victory. Not the celebratory. It's kind of silence, but the kind that feels like the pause between lightning and thunder. And Violet feels it thick in the air. Her unit's triumph in the simulation. Brat murmurs through Bisgayath. Some cadets look at her like a threat. Others with something almost like hope, but not command. Command watches like a predator, does calculating. Patient, waiting for the kill. It begins with a reassignment notice. Hyacinth, her scribe and key. Communicator is pulled from the squad. Without warning, no explanation, no reason, just a name on a parchment. And a new bunk on the far side of the barracks. It feels like the first domino, because the moment Hyacinth is gone, communication starts to fray. Orders get misrouted. Assignments come late. Information flows slower, heavier. Like blood thickened with fear, Violet knows it's not. Coincidence? It's sabotage. They're trying to fracture her unit from the inside. She pulls Rhiannon aside. After a grueling obstacle run, they're watching who I trust, she says. Rhiannon frowns. Then let them watch. But Violet shakes her head.
Oh.
They want to isolate me. One person at a time, till I stop functioning. Rhiannon leans in. You won't. You're stronger than that. I'm tired of having to be Violet. Whispers, and there it is, the crack beneath the steel. She doesn't show it often, can't afford to, but Rhiannon sees it now. The weight, the fear, the unspoken grief. They sit in silence, shoulder to shoulder. As the rest of the cadets run laps under the blazing sun, sometimes rebellion is loud, sometimes it's choosing who you sit beside. The next mission is a courier run low risk, or so it seems, but the path runs along an old trade road near the edge of warded territory. skimming dangerously close to the neutral zone's uncharted land, barely held back by magic and myth. Violet's instinct screams the moment she sees the route, but she doesn't have a choice, not with orders sealed and her dragon already waiting. Tyrn is uneasy from the start. His wings cut through the clouds like knives, but his mental voice is sharper. Something watches in Darna. She dreams. Even the younger dragon, usually curious and talkative, is quiet. Violet tightens her grip on her harness below. The forest stretches like a wound, too dark, too still. Then it happens, a flash, a tear in the air itself, magic like oil. Slicking across vision, and from it, creatures emerge. Not VNIN. Worse constructs made of bone and shadow tall. Twisted, fast. Violet doesn't scream. She commands Tyrn. Dives, she draws her blade. It's over in moments because it has to. B.1 strike, one scream. Burst of fire from Tyrn's throat. They fall. Hard. Not dead, not yet, but shaken. When they limp back to Basgiath, the gate guards barely glance at them. No one asks questions, and that's the part that frightens her most. That night, Xaden finds her outside the infirmary. "You're hurt," he says. She shrugs. Not enough to report. His jaw tightens. "Should have told me about the courier run." She turns on him. "Why? So you could tell me not to go? You think I don't know what's happening?" He looks at her. "I think you're carrying too much." She laughs bitterly. And who isn't? He reaches for her hand, not to pull her in, but just to touch. And for a moment, it's just when they are still. Two warriors in a war neither of them controls. Two people who don't remember what peace feels like. "I can't protect you from everything." He says quietly. "I don't want protection," she replies. "I want truth." He nods once. "Then I'll give it to you." And he does. He tells her about recent breaches in the eastern wards. Whole village is gone. Wards drained. Magic twisted. He tells her about the Council of Dragons, how they debate not just strategy, but survival. Some believe the war is already lost. Others believe Violet could be the key to changing its course. She doesn't know how to carry that weight, but she listens. The next day, a scroll is slipped beneath her door. No name, just a seal she doesn't recognize. Inside is a map and a single line of text. "Find what was buried at Atrium's Hollow." She studies the coordinates. It's an old ruin, long forbidden. Rumored to be unstable, cursed, which means it's exactly where the truth is hiding. She memorizes the map, then burns the scroll, because secrets are safest when they live in flame. Before she can plan a route, the next change hits. Sloane is summoned to the central watchtower for a leadership review. She doesn't come back that night, or the next. When Violet finally sees her again, Sloane's eyes are wrong, dimmer, caged she. Doesn't speak, barely moves. Whatever happened in that tower wasn't a test, it was a warning. Violet sits beside her on the barracks. Cot waits, doesn't ask, because some silences scream louder than any words. Later that week, Violet receives her own summons, not to the tower, to the vaults. Ancient stone buried. Beneath Basgiath itself, a place few are ever invited, even fewer survive. Inside, she's met by Melgren. Alone, no witnesses. No guards, just a relic from another age. A sword, carved with runes that hum with magic. "It's time," he says. "For what?" "To see if you're really what they say you are." He tosses the blade at her feet. "Pick it up." She hesitates, then grips the hilt. Pain lances through her arms, searing wholly. And then, nothing. The blade accepts her. Melgren's eyes widen, just a fraction enough. "You've made your choice," he says. "No," Violet answers. The blade made it. She leaves the vault shaking, the sword strapped to her back. Not as a weapon, as a promise, because war is coming, and she intends to meet it with fire. In her bones and truth on her tongue, let them fear her. Let them watch, because Violet Sorrengail is done waiting. The sword hums at her back like a living thing. Not loud, Not angry, but constant. Like it recognizes her. Like it's waiting for her to do something worthy of it. Violet hasn't told anyone about the vault, about Melgren, about the pain that seared. Through her palm, the moment she touched the blade, and the eerie calm that followed. Some secrets don't feel safe even in whispers. Sloane still hasn't recovered. She speaks in clipped sentences now. Wakes with her fists clenched. Sleeps with her back to the wall. Violet wants to ask what happened in the tower, wants to press, to know, to fight for her. But she doesn't. Because Violet understands now that survival isn't always strength. Sometimes it's silence. The squad receives a new assignment, another retrieval, another border site. But this one is different because it's not a real location. It's a test site, an experimental outpost, used decades ago and supposedly decommissioned. Nothing should be left there. No personnel, no reason to return. Except the orders are explicit. Recover an artifact, no other details given. Violet studies the route, the terrain. The old maps in the library and what she finds makes her blood run cold. The site isn't decommissioned, it's sealed. Ward-locked, and not by enemy. Hands by BASGIA. By her own people, she meets Zayden in a forgotten stairwell beneath the dragon. Stables Joe's him the documents. Why would they send you there? He asks, eyes narrowing. Violet shakes her head. Because they don't expect me to come back. He's silent. Then we go together. Shh. Don't know. If you're gone, people will notice. You're already a target if you vanish. They'll bury what's left of this rebellion in stone. He steps forward, voice low. And if you vanish, she doesn't answer. Because they both already know. She leaves at dawn, alone rides. Tearn under clouded skies until the sun is a ghost. Behind fog, the site comes into view, slowly a crumbling tower, half swallowed by forest. Weeds growing through broken stone. Iron doors rusted shut, but the wards are still active. She feels them press against her skin, buzzing, warning, waiting. And Darna shifts beside her, usually quiet. Don't go in alone, the young dragon murmurs. But Violet already knows she has to. Inside, it's dark, not pitch black, just old. Old magic, old ghosts. The air smells like dust and regret. She moves carefully, step by step. Past broken walls, collapsed ceilings, ancient runes, half raced by time until she reaches the lower chamber. There, nestled in a circle of runes, is the artifact. It's not a weapon. It's a book, bound in dragonhide, locked by sigil, and it pulses faintly. Like a heartbeat, she reaches for it. And that's when the trap springs. The ceiling caves in behind. Her raw and intentional collapse. The doors above seal shut with a groan of iron and stone, and the runes on. The floor begin to glow red, not warning containment. The book was bait. She's not meant to read it. She's meant to die beside it. Tyrn roars from above, its fury shaking the ground. She hears claws scrape against stone. Fire rage against wards, but the room holds. She's cut, off-trapped, alone. She takes a breath, opens the book, and everything changes. It's not just text, it's memory, history, the real one. The book is a ledger of experiments, magical enhancements, bonded violations, ward manipulation, everything Basgiath has done behind closed doors. Everything they buried. She sees notes in her mother's handwriting, mentions of resonant trials, of riders forced to endure magical trauma in the name of advancement. There's even a record of Violet herself, test subject. Hashtag for 7-B, her breath hitches. It wasn't just coincidence that she bonded to dragons they made her, or tried to. She's not a miracle, she's a result. Outside, she hears the distant scream of metal. Tyrn breaks through the upper ward with a shattering roar. Light floods the chamber. Violet grabs the book, clutches it to her chest, and runs. The magic tries to hold her backlings to her like webs, but she pushes through, stumbles out into the open, falls into sunlight and into Zayden's arms. He shouldn't be there. He promised he wouldn't come, but he did. Of course he did. He pulls her up, face pale. Hands shaking. I felt it, he says. When the ward shifted, felt it through the bond. Violet grips the book tighter. They tried to erase it. Everything, but it's here. All of it. He looks at her and sees the cost. You shouldn't have gone alone. No one else could. Back at Basgaeth, she hides the book beneath loose stones in the old barracks wall. No magic, no wards. Just the simplest of protections, because the truth needs to stay alive, even if she'll dud. Later that night, she sits alone on the training field. The stars overhead feel farther than ever, and Darna curls at her side. Do you regret it? Young Dragon asks softly. Violet doesn't answer right away, then says, I regret not knowing sooner. Pause. And I regret not being afraid of them until now. Because now she is afraid. Not of the venom, not even of the war, but of the ones who call themselves the protectors of the realm, because they're willing to destroy everything including her. To protect the lie they've built, but she won't let them. Not anymore. It rains the next morning, not a gentle wash of spring, but a relentless, it's cold downpour that seems to soak into the bones of Basgaeth itself. The kind of rain that feels like a reckoning. Violet stands at the edge of the training fields.
Soaked.
Through her boots deep in mud, the others have taken shelter, but she doesn't move. She's staring at the sky like it might give her answers, or maybe just the strength to keep breathing. In her mind, the truth is still screaming. The book. Experiments. Her mother's handwriting, like a ghost, come to accuse her. They didn't just try to make stronger riders, they altered them, and Violet. She wasn't an exception. She was the blueprint. She doesn't tell anyone, not Rhiannon, not Xaden, not even Tyrn, because part of her doesn't know who to trust anymore, and the other part is still trying to decide if she's a weapon that escaped the forger, one that never left it. A formal inspection is called at noon. COM, MANDANTS, and wardens. Instructors and generals. Every rider is to present themselves in full gear. Every dragon to be seen, counted for, controlled. Violet knows what this is. A show of strength, a reminder of power. But she plays along. She stands in her leathers. Sword strapped to her back and meets every gaze with a silence sharper than steel. Tyrn lands behind her, massive wings spraying water over the cobbled yard. His growl shakes the sky, and Darna lands two smaller, gentler, but no less defiant, together. They are impossible to ignore, and that's the point. Because command fears what they can't bend. General. Melgren approaches, his stride is slow, intentional. He stops before Violet and studies her with an expression carved from stone. You're making quite the name for yourself. She doesn't answer, just lets the silence sit heavy between them. His eyes flick to her sword. Interesting choice. Ancient steel? Did you reclaim it? I earned it. Pause. Then, be careful, Cadet Sorrengail. Some legacies are best left buried. He walks away without waiting for a response. But Violet doesn't miss the warning, or the threat. That night, she dreams of Atrium's hollow, of the book glowing red in her hands, of wards collapsing in fire, consuming everything. When she wakes, her room is dark, but she's not alone. A shadow moves near her door, silent. Patient, she doesn't scream, she moves. Knife in hand, before breath, even fills her lungs. But the figure doesn't attack. It drops a note, turns, disappears. No sound, no. Trace just a single piece of parchment left behind. Violet lights a candle, unfolds the message. 6 words scrawled in handwriting she doesn't recognize. They know. Run before next dusk. She doesn't run. She prepares. The next morning she meets Xaden near the west. What as she tells him everything. The book, the chamber, the dote, the note, even what she learned about herself when she's finished. He doesn't speak, just stares at her like she's something he almost doesn't recognize. Then finally he says, "You should have told me sooner." She nods. "I was afraid." Of me? No. Of what it would mean if I wasn't what they thought. If everything they did actually worked. He steps closer. "Violet, you're not a result, a revolution." It's not romantic. Not soft. It's something else. Something fiercer. Something that cuts through every layer of fear like light through fog. They decide together. No more hiding. The truth has to come out, and it has to come from her, because she's the one they can't. Ignore the one bonded to 2 dragons. The one. With a name they thought they owned, they meet in the strategy room that night. The Rebellion's inner circle. Imogen, Garrick, Riddick, Rhiannon, even. Violet places the stolen book on the table and says only 3 words. It's all true. What follows is silence, and then pages turning, eyes widening, voices whispering things no one should know. They argue fiercely. Rhiannon's hands tremble. Imogen curses in 3 languages. Garrick says nothing, just stares at the runes with haunted eyes. But in the end, there is only one conclusion. Boss Gaiath has been lying. And it's not just a lie that poisons history. It's one that could doom the future. They planned carefully, quietly to smuggle the book out of the Citadel. To take it to the summit mentioned in the sealed letter. To get it into hands that still remember truth. But they'll need a distraction. Mission. A reason to leave without drawing attention. That chance comes the next day. A scouting expedition. Beyond the Eastern Ward, volunteers requested. Violet steps forward, and so does Exiden, and so does Sloane. Because some wars are won not by armies, but by who survives to tell the story as they prepare. Violet finds herself standing alone beneath the stars. Tyrn lands beside her, silent as falling ash. She looks up. "What if I'm not ready?" His answer is immediate. "Then get ready, 'cause the world won't wait." She laughs, short, broken. Sound, then nods. Because he's right. Because everything is already in motion. Because the storm is coming. And Violet Sorrengail intends to be its eye. Morning breaks like a whisper, soft and gray. There's no horn, no alarm, no tension in the air. Just that quiet before something breaks. And Violet feels it deep in her chest, that stillness that comes before storms. She knows what today is. The scouting mission beyond the Eastern Ward, the excuse they needed to leave. But now that it's here, everything feels fragile, as if the plan might fall apart with a single breath. Xaden meets her at the flight platform, his jaws tight, his eyes darker than usual. The others gather Rhiannon, Sloane, Riddick, Imogen, Garrick, a unit built not by strategy, but survival. The bond between them unspoken but unshakable. They've packed lightly, just enough to make it look like a sanctioned mission. Not an escape. Not treason. Tyrn and Indarna land together, their presence commanding immediate silence. Even other cadets glance over, recognizing the gravity of 2 dragons guarding 1 rider. And that's exactly the message Violet needs. Them to send, they lift into the sky, mid-dash morning. No fanfare. No questions, just wind and silence and 2. Many eyes watching from the towers. The Eastern Wards shimmer below as they cross into uncharted territory. No. One speaks. The silence is heavier now. Not the calm before, but the calm within, the kind you feel when you've already made the choice. The kind you carry when you know you can't turn back. By mid-afternoon, they land near a ridge of broken stone. The kind of landscape that time forgot, sharp rocks and twisted trees. Thick mist curling over cracked earth. It's here. The meeting place mentioned in the letter A. It's a plateau marked with old sigils, older than Basgaiath itself. Violet steps down. From Tyrn's saddle and immediately feels it. Magic not. Hostile, not familiar. Something older. Something ... watching. And then, they come from the mist. Dragons first. UNBON. DE. larger than any she's seen before. wings like canvas stretched over ancient bone. Then riders not in Basgiath. Colors, their leathers are patchwork, practical worn. They move like ghosts, like myths. Isn't just a summit, it's a gathering of those who remember. An elder rider steps forward, her hair silver, her back straight. A jagged scar slices across her cheek. "You are the Sorrengail girl," she says. Violet nods. Violet, woman studies her, and gestures to a small circle of stones. "We've waited a long time for this." They sit in the circle. No ceremony, just words. The woman introduces herself as Commander Nalia of the Outer Accordion, ancient pact formed by dragonkind and a few surviving riders after the first. Then in war, not sanctioned, not public. Resistance built in silence, kept alive by memory and flame. Violet places the stolen book in the center of the stones, and the circle leans in, eyes scan, pages, gasps, echo, because what Violet brought isn't just evidence, it's proof. Proof that Basgiath didn't win the last war, they buried it. Sacrificed the truth to build something more controlled, more obedient, and now that lie is unraveling. Nalia looks up. This changes everything. Violet doesn't respond. She doesn't have to, because she's not here to change everything. She's here to burn what doesn't deserve to survive. The Cord Riders begin to speak of strategy, of preparing for breaches, of gathering allies. But there's fear in their voices because they are few and time is short. And as Gaiath is still blind, Xaden steps forward, then we force them to see. Back at camp, hours later, Violet sits alone at the edge of the ridge, staring into the mist. And Darna curls beside her, soft and warm. "You're afraid," the young dragon says. Violet doesn't lie. "Yes. But you came anyway, yes?" And Darna hums. That's the kind of bravery that writes new endings. They sleep in shifts that night. Violet lies awake. The breathing of her friends, to the quiet snore of our Idok, the soft clicks of Imogen's blade being sharpened, the whispered conversations between Garrick and Sloane, a makeshift family, held together by secrets and choice. The next morning, they prepare to return. We had done what they came to do, delivered the truth, started the fuse. Now it's only a matter of time before something explodes. But before they leave, Nalia hands Violet a scroll, sealed with dragonbone wax. "You'll know when to open it," she says. Violet frowns. What's in it? A name and a question. Cryptic, of course. They take off mid-morning. The sky is clear, but the feeling in Violet's chest is not. Because returning to Basgiath is no longer returning home. It's walking into the eye of the storm, and this time, she's not just another cadet. She's the match, and everything is about to catch fire. The return to Basgiath is nothing short of a calculated lie. Violet keeps her posture steady, her face unreadable. Every motion choreographed to conceal the war now waging inside. She has the truth. But truth without strategy is just noise. And noise gets you killed. They land mid-afternoon, turns wings thunder over the citadel, commanding attention the way only an ancient dragon can. And Darna follows like a flicker of silver lightning quiet, but no less potent as their talons scrape. The landing platform, instructors and cadets gather, pretending it's business as usual, but Violet sees it. No. The way eyes linger, the way silence spreads. They know something's changed. They just don't know what. Yet Commandant Varish waits at the edge of the flight deck, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Report, he demands, as if they owe him anything. Xaden steps forward, voice calm. Scout mission successful? No Venin sightings, no casualties, no mention of the summit, of the stolen truth, of the scroll tucked safely inside Violet's jacket. Varish's eyes flick over the squad, each of them a threat now, even if he doesn't know why. Yet again, Violet realizes survival is not about power, It's about knowing when to speak and when to watch. The rest of the day unravels in slivers, training drills, ration lines. A lecture on enhanced ward theory that grates against everything she now knows to be false. Violet sits in the back of the hall, arms folded, heart racing with quiet fury. They're still teaching cadets that the Venin were defeated. Centuries ago, still pretending the wards are stable, still painting the world in lies so thick, the truth barely breathes beneath them. And for the first time, she doesn't just feel disgust, she feels rage. Because they're not just complicit, they're complacent. That night, Violet meets Rhiannon in the old strategy, wing half forgotten. Dust covered, the kind of place no one bothers to patrol. She hands her the scroll from Commander Nalia. "Open it with me," Violet says. Rhiannon nods. The seal breaks with a soft crack. Wax falling away like ashdot inside. Two things, a single name and a question. Are you willing to destroy what you love, to protect what you must? Violet stares at the words. They don't ask if she's ready to fight. They ask if she's ready to sacrifice. And the name? A professor. Someone in Basgayath's inner circle. Someone who helped rewrite the history of the last war. Someone close enough to be dangerous. Rhiannon's hand trembles. As she reads it, Violet just breathes deeper. Because she already knows the answer to the question. She just hopes she doesn't have to give it. The next morning, something shifts, subtle but unmistakable. The air crackles with tension as cadets gather for combat trials. But it's not the trial that changes everything. It's who's watching. An emissary from the king's court stands on the platform, regal. Still, cloaked in gold and gray. He isn't here for the trials. He's here for the riders. Violet feels his gaze land on her like ice, measured, calculating, and something else. Recognition, she doesn't flinch. She meets his eyes and smiles. The kind of smile that promises nothing except resistance. During the trial, they pair her with Sloane, a test within a test. Two cadets with a history of grief, both. Walking blades, they fight like dancers, each strike carrying more than training. Each movement a silent language only the scarred can speak. They don't just win the match, they dominate it. And for once, it doesn't feel like victory. It feels like warning. That night, Violet slips away to the archives. It's a risk, but one worth taking. She searches for the professor named in the scroll, finds a series of old essays, deeply edited, riddled with gaps. But beneath the redacted lines, one thing remains. Mentions of experimentation during the final stages of the last Venin War, and a signature buried in footnotes. Professor Alara, Bane currently teaching advanced magical theory. Violet's seen her. Before, pale hair, distant voice, hands that never quite stop moving. A woman who speaks of magic like a mechanic, talks about gears. Not dangerous at first glance, but now. Now Violet sees the truth in the margins and knows exactly what she has. To do, she doesn't tell Xaden. Not yet, because some truths need to be handled with surgical precision. One slip, and the whole system bleeds. The next day, she signs up for an optional lecture hosted by Professor Vane. Only 3 cadets attend. Perfect Violet. Waits until the end, until the others leave, then stands in the doorway as Alara gathers her notes. There's something I want to ask, she says, tone polite. Alara looks up, smiles. The girl bonded to 2 dragons. Of course, what can I help you with? Violet steps closer, unfolds a piece of parchment. It's not the scroll. It's a copy of one of the redacted essays. The professor's smile fades. I don't know where you got that. You wrote it, Violet says. Alara, how many cadets died? During those experiments, how many were created? Pause. Then softly Alara answers, too many. Not guilt in her voice. It's calculation. Violet's stomach turns. You knew what they were doing. Alara admits, but not out of cruelty. Out of necessity. Violet shakes her head. That's not an excuse. It's survival. the professor says. And you, Violet, are the only successful outcome. Later, Violet finds Xaden in the flight yard. She doesn't tell him what Alara said, just folds into his arms and lets the silence hold her, because everything is cracking, and the only way to survive the coming collapse, ... is to be the one who controls where the pieces fall. Time fractures differently when you're waiting for war. And even though no horns sound and no blood is spilled, Violet knows this is a war. It's just wearing the face of normalcy. Routine, class schedules, training rotations, tactical lectures. But underneath, everything is cracking. You just have to know where to look. And Violet, she sees every fracture. It starts with a reassignment. Professor, Benofta. Years of holding the same class slot suddenly replaced. No reason, no explanation, just gone. Like someone knew Violet had spoken to her. Like someone wants to erase the trail before it leads to something bigger. She doesn't say anything in class, doesn't flinch. But in her mind, the alarm is blaring. They're watching, tracking, waiting, and she's running out of time to act. The rebellion meets Agenthis. Time in the southern catacombs, where the smell of damp stone hides whispers. Well, Xaden, Imogen, Riddick, Garrick, Rhiannon, Sloane, each of them carries pieces of the puzzle, and Violet. She's starting to see the whole picture. There's a window. Imogen says, unfurling a stolen copy of the latest ward schematics. The southern barrier will cycle for recalibration in 3 nights. 60 seconds of vulnerability. That's not long, Rhiannon murmurs. It's enough, Violet says, because that's all they ever get fragments of time, moments, to either fall or fight. The plan is reckless. They'll use the ward. Pulse to smuggle the book still hidden in the barracks wall out through a messenger flight. A decoy mission with real cargo? They'll need a rider trusted by both sides. They'll need forged orders, falsified coordinates, a silence deeper than fear. Every piece has to move exactly right or they lose everything. Xaden pulls Violet aside after the meeting. You're too calm, he says. She looks at him. I can't afford not to be. He shakes his head. I'm serious. This is more than a strike. This is treason. Against what? She shoots back. A kingdom built on lies. A school that turns cadets into test subjects. He steps closer, voice quieter now. I'm not trying to stop you, Violet. I just want to know if you're ready for what comes after. She meets his gaze. I'm ready to make them afraid. The next few days are a blur of motion. They stage a minor conflict with secondaries to justify restricted movement. They swap parchments. Mid-flight to disguise the outgoing courier's trail. They fake a training accident to move Rhiannon near. The stable's long enough to swap Sackle. All of it orchestrated like a symphony of shadows. And when the hour comes, Violet is waiting on the battlement, watching the horizon like it might finally yield something honest. Tyrn lands beside her in Darna. Circles above the courier takes flight at the exact moment the ward pulse is barely visible. A second, then gone. The book is out, gone from BASGIA, out in the world. And suddenly, it's real. They can't take it back. That night, sleep doesn't come. Violet walks the halls alone. No armor, no weapons. Just a girl shaped by war and betrayal. She finds herself outside the archives again. Drawn like a tide, inside a light flickers. Someone's there. She enters slowly and finds Dane Atwas at the far table. Reading, he looks up, freezes something. Sharp flickers behind his expression. Violet, he says. Out late? She shrugs. Could ask the same of you? He closes the book. Just brushing up on military history. She steps closer, recognizes the title. It's one of the censored. Text 1 only accessible to command, and now she knows. He's not just a teacher. He's an operative, a watchman, and her time of pretending not to know is over. I know what you're doing, she says softly. I doubt that, Dane replies. You've been busy pretending to be clever, she breathes once. I am clever, and you're a coward, Dane. You always were. He stands. Slowly, you should walk away while you still can. Before this consumes everything, she laughs quiet, bitter. It already has. Then she turns and walks out. Because his warnings don't scare her anymore, but they confirm everything. The clock is ticking, and she's already past the point of no return. Back in the barracks, Rhiannon is waiting up. Violet sits beside her. On the lower bunk, neither speaks for a long time. Then finally, Rhiannon asks, "Do you think we'll survive this?" And Violet answers with the only truth she has, "I think we were never meant to." A pause. But we're going to anyway. The next morning, everything feels too quiet. No announcements, no inquiries about the courier flight, no sign that anyone noticed what they'd done. But that's the thing about storms. They don't scream when they arrive, they just break during training. Violet is pulled from formation. No explanation. She's taken to the Southern Hall, a place where lectures are. Usually held, but today. It's empty, except for one chair, one woman. General Melgren. He gestures for her to sit. She doesn't. "You've been busy," he says. "I'm a student," she replies. "We're all busy." He smiles faintly. "Let me be clear. If I wanted to accuse you of anything, you wouldn't be standing here. You'd be in the cells. Then what do you want? A choice." That word again. Always. That word, Melgren continues. "You have power. Influence. Dragons trust you. Cadets who follow you, and you're angry righteously so. But rage is a poor architect." She tilts her head. "And lies make a poor kingdom." He stands slowly, steps toward her. "Walk carefully, Violet. There are worse things than being hated. By the enemy." She meets his gaze, steel in her voice, like being used by the people who claim to protect you. A silence sharpens between them. Then Melgren nods once, dismisses her, no more threats, because he knows she's no longer afraid of what's coming. She's preparing to be it. The morning after her meeting with General Melgren, the world is ... still, suspiciously still. No summons, no arrests, no consequences yet. And Violet knows better than to believe it means she's safe, because silence at Bisgayath isn't peace. It's the sound of a knife being drawn in the dark. She slips through the halls before sunrise, Taryn's voice humming in her mind. "You are being hunted," he says. "Not by beasts, but by men." And she knows. He's right. The rebellion is in motion. The book is gone delivered. The lie exposed. But truth doesn't win battles alone. It only starts. Them, in the courtyard, find Sloane practicing. Blade flashing under the morning light like a warning to the world. Violet doesn't interrupt, just watches. There's something almost haunting about the way Sloane moves. Flawless. Brutal. Like grief sculpted into motion. They haven't spoken much since Atrium's Hollow. Not really. Pain has a way of building walls. Even war can't bring down. But when Sloane finally stops, breathing hard, she says, without turning, "There. Going to come for us?" Violet steps closer. They already have. Later that day, in combat tactics, their instructor drills them on breach formations, how to hold the line against overwhelming odds. It feels like prophecy. Every word, every word, every diagram, every theory whispered under the pretense of strategy in Violet. She stops taking notes, because she knows now that no formation can protect you from betrayal. And that's what this is. Not just war, not just lies, but betrayal of knowledge, of memory, of what Basgayath once pretended to be. At lunch, Zayden joins. Her under the shadows of the upper terrace, neither speaks for several minutes. Finally, says something's shifted. She nods. They're circling. He glances toward the spires, and we hit first. But Violet shakes her head. No, we wait. Pause. For what? For them to underestimate us again. Is that more than magic? More than power is? What keeps her alive? They always look at her and see a girl. A miracle. A deviation. Not a threat. And by the time they realize she is, It's always too late. That evening, Imogen delivers news. The scroll reached its destination. The rebellion's outside agents have read the book. Word is spreading slowly, carefully but surely, and Violet lets herself feel hope. Not all of it, just a thread. But in this world, a thread is a lifeline. She visits the archives alone that night, a risk. After her last encounter with Dane, but she can't stay away. There are too many gaps in the puzzle, too many shadows. She needs to drag into light. She searches for old class. Rosters. Cadet logs from a decade ago. Finds a name, Alina. Sorrengail, her sister. The one who died before the war ever reached Violet's door. There's not much, just a notation, inside the file. Classified by command, removed from records per Executive Order 91F. Violet stares at it for a long time, because now she knows. Even her sister was. Rewritten, erased, whatever Alina discovered, it was enough to silence her memory, and now Violet understands what kind of legacy she's really inherited. Not just power, not just a family name, but a history soaked in blood. And secrets, she doesn't cry. There's no room for it anymore, only resolve. 2 days later, the trap is sprung, not from command, not from General Melgren, but from inside the rebellion. It starts with Arik. He doesn't show up to drills, then to formation. Rhiannon finds him barely. Breathing in the medical wing poisoned, not by accident. Someone laced his water satchel, and that someone knew exactly what he was carrying the night of the courier flight. Violet stands at his bedside, heart like stone in her chest, because this isn't the enemy outside the walls. This is internal. A traitor. Inside their own ranks, Xaden wants to tear the barracks apart, to interrogate every cadet, but Violet stops him. No, Nick says. If we fracture now, they win. Imogen scowls. And what do you suggest? Wait for whoever did this to finish the job, Violet replies. I suggest we bait them. And just like that, the game changes. They leak a new plan. False intel. Second courier. A forged schedule, a decoy parchment with fake maps, and then they wait. And sure enough, 3 nights later, the decoy vanishes, intercepted by someone inside. But this time, they were ready, and the person who intercepted it wasn't just a fellow cadet, it was Dane. They confront him on the training field. Public. Unavoidable. No shadows to hide behind. Rhiannon. Imogen. Xaden. Sloane surrounding him like a tribunal. Violet steps forward. Why? She asks. Dane doesn't. Pretend to be innocent. His face is tight. Resigned, because the kingdom needs order, not chaos, not idealism. Violet's voice is ice. You tried to kill Garrick. I stopped a threat, he says. And what am I? He meets her eyes. You're a mistake that keeps growing teeth. With that, she hits him. A single strike, clean, controlled. She doesn't draw her sword. She doesn't need to. Because this was never about violence. It was about choice and Dane. He made his, so did she. They don't kill him, but they exile him socially, strategically, completely. No rebellion, no circle, no protection, just silence. Because sometimes, that's the sharpest punishment of all. That night, Violet sits alone in the war room. The map before her is no longer just lines and cities. It's blood. It's choices. It's people she can't afford to lose, and enemies who wear friendly faces. And yet, she feels stronger than ever. Not because she's safe, but because she knows. Knows what she's facing. Knows what she's willing to become. Knows the storm is almost herald. She will not break beneath it. There's blood on the training field. Not from a fight, but from what's left behind. When war creeps through unseen, Garrick's cot remains empty. The whispers haven't stopped, and Violet stands in the center of it all like a fracture quiet, deep, and growing. It's been 3 days since Dane was exposed. 3 days since she realized just how close the threat always was. And in those 3 days, The world has only sharpened. The way instructors watch her. The subtle shifts in how other cadets fall silent when she enters. Even Xaden's posture is more guarded now, like he's waiting for another blade to fall, because it will. It always does. The rebellion reconvenes in one of the lesser-used war rooms. Beneath the East Wing candlelight flickering against stone, Imogen, Rhiannon, Riddick, Sloane, each changed. Each harder Violet spreads a map across the table. Their next step is clear. They need allies, real ones, outside Basgiath. Outside the realm of whispers, but to get them, they need proof of more than lies. They need proof of Venin activity, recent, undeniable, and close enough to strike fear into even the most loyal of command. And that means one thing. They need two. Find the Venin again. Xaden objects. Violet, that's not just dangerous. It's suicidal. They're the reason we did this, she says. If we can't show people what's really out there, what we're actually fighting, none of this matters. He stares at her. Then, you're too willing to risk yourself, and you're too willing to protect me from everything, including my own purpose. The words cut deep, but neither of them flinch. Because the truth? It's uglier than either of them want to admit. They leave at nightfall. Just Violet and Imogen. No full unit, no cover, only speed and silence. Tyrn takes them east toward the ruins of a former outpost rumored to have gone silent weeks ago. Officially, weather damage. Unofficially, suspected breach. What they find is worse. The outpost is ash, not burned in battle, but drained. Every piece of stone brittle with residual magic. Violet walks the perimeter with Imogen, step heavier than the last. They find no bodies, only echoes. And marks in the stone, Venin glyphs, rushed, unfinished. A summoning that was interrupted but not stopped. This isn't just evidence, it's a message, and it's fresh. They were here, Violet says, crouching to touch the blackened soil. Days ago, maybe less. Imogen swears softly, they're not far. They gather what they can, glyph tracings, soil samples, and most importantly, a mirror shard scorched with Venin, channeling lines. Something physical, something that can't be explained away. It's enough, but as they turn to leave, shifts cold, wet, and then the first shadow moves. A figure, draped in tattered robes, eyes like smoldering coal. A Venin. They don't speak. They don't posture. They attack. Violet draws her blade. Imogen flanks. Tyrn roars above them, flame streaking. The sky in warning. But the Venin is fast too fast. Violet ducks a blast of raw magic, the air turning acidic around her. She counters with a slash across its shoulder, drawing oily blood, and then another shadow joins it. Then another 3. It's a trap. A test. But Violet doesn't run. She stands her ground. She fights. Because this moment is the reason she survived Basgiath the tests, the betrayals. To face what others fear to name, to fight what the kingdom pretends doesn't exist. When they finally escape, it's with burns and bruises and blood that may or may not be. But they escape. They live. And more importantly, they have what they came for. Back at Basgiath, the mood has shifted again. Violet walks through the halls and feels the stairs like heat on her skin. Some cadets avoid her now, others nod in silent solidarity. Everyone senses the change. The rumor that Violet Sorrengail isn't just bonded to 2 dragons. She's bonded to the truth, and truth in this world is a weapon. She presents the evidence to the inner circle that night. Rhiannon's eyes widen as she holds the glyph-scorched mirror. Even Xaden goes still. This... ... This changes everything, Riddick murmurs. No, Violet says. It confirms everything. They make a decision this time, without hesitation. The rebellion must act. Not in the shadows, not in secrets, but in a way no one can ignore. They'll expose the venom breach publicly. With a demonstration, with a GOYPHS, with proof that even the most loyal instructor can't deny. The plan is set, but as always, plans come with cost, and it arrives faster than expected. That night, Violet is summoned, not to training, not to council, to her mother's chambers. A place she hasn't stepped into since her death. Except her mother is not who's waiting. It's Commandant Varish, and he's not alone too. Guards flank him. The room is cold, unlit. Varish doesn't sit. He simply says, "We know what you took, what you're spreading." Violet doesn't deny it. He steps closer. "You think dragons make you untouchable. That being Sorrengail gives you immunity. It doesn't. We will burn the name from history if that's what it takes to keep order." Violet smiles, the kind of smile that doesn't reach her eyes. Then she says, "Try it." The meeting ends without a blow, but the threat, it lingers, because now she knows they're preparing something too, something permanent, and she has only a sliver of time left to act. She leaves the chamber and finds Tyrn waiting in the courtyard. Wings flexed, eyes alert. He doesn't ask what happened. He already knows. Instead, says, "The storm is coming." And Violet finally says, "Then let it come." The day begins in silence. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind. The kind that feels like the air is holding its breath. Because tonight, everything changes. Violet wakes before dawn, sleep a forgotten luxury. Tyrn paces the edge of the citadel. Courtyard below, his mind already locked into battle readiness. And Darna watches from the shadows, quiet, steady, more aware than ever. The rebellion has decided tonight. They'll bring the truth into the open. No more whispers, no more hidden scrolls. They will show the other cadets, all of them, what Bascaeth has tried to erase. And if it costs them everything, so be it. She meets Zayden in the stables. His face is unreadable, but the tension is coiled in every line of his body. "Are you sure?" he asks, and Violet doesn't hesitate. No more hiding. He nods, but there's something deeper behind his eyes. Not fear, but sorrow, because when you step into the light with your truth, you also become a target. And Zayden has seen too many. People fall for less throughout the day. Violet moves like a shadow. She speaks to the ones who need to knock quiet conversations with trusted allies. Cadets who've already seen enough to question the truth. Sloane, Riddick, Rhiannon, Imogen. Of course, doesn't even blink when Violet tells her what's coming. "About damn time," she mutters, checking her blades by late afternoon. The plan is in motion. At twilight, we'll meet in the central courtyard, the place where students gather for celebrations, ceremonies, and now. Revolution, the sun begins to fall. Torches are lit, and Violet feels at that sharp line between before and after. They've spread the word carefully. Not a command, not a demand, just this: "Come, if you want to know what they're hiding." She steps onto the platform. The courtyard is half full. Cadets murmur. Instructors glance down from balconies. The rebellion stands behind her like a wall of silent Sedan. Imogen, Rhiannon, Sloane, Riddick, even Garrick, pale but upright, leaning on a cane, refuses to miss this. The moment has arrived. Violet begins to speak, not with rage, not with shouting, just a clear voice that cuts. Through the doubt like a blade, you've been taught we live in peace, that the wards keep us safe, that the venom are gone. She pauses. Those are lies. Gasps, mutters, a few scoffs, but no one leaves. So she continues. "I've seen the venom. I've fought them. Yes. And I have proof." She pulls out the mirror. Shard. Scorched with glyphs, she unfolds the sketchings from the outpost. She shows the blood-soaked edges of what the kingdom has kept hidden. This is the truth. The real enemy, and they are not gone. An instructor tries to interrupt, shouting about treason, about protocol, but then Tyrn lands. Hard a roar that silences everything. And Darna follows, her silver scales catching every torchlight, like more, And when two dragons stand with a rider, you listen, you believe. Violet steps down from the platform, not because she's done, but because she doesn't need to say. The truth is alive now, and it will spread whether they approve or not. Later in the war room, the rebellion gathers. What happens now? Riddick asks, voice quieter than usual. They'll try to silence it, Rhiannon says. They'll fail, Imogen replies. Xaden looks at Violet. They'll come for you. She nods. Then let them. That night, she doesn't sleep. She watches the stars from the parapet above the archives. The wind cold against her skin, and Tyrn speaks in her mind low. Steady, you've changed. She answers without hesitation. No. I've become. But in the quiet, a shadow moves. A presence she didn't expect. Sloane. She approaches slowly, her hands in her pockets. Her expression unreadable. I never believed in you, she says. Violet tilts her head. I know, Sloane. Steps closer. But tonight, I believed for the first time. And that scares me. Why? Because belief makes you vulnerable. Violet offers a tired smile. Then we're all vulnerable now. You're just before dawn, a message arrives. Slipped beneath the barracks door, unmarked inside. A note, one sentence. They're coming. Be ready. No name, no signature, but Violet knows exactly what it means. The storm is no longer coming. It's here. Asterisk. The day begins not with thunder, but with silence. The kind that hums just beneath the skin. That taut, natural stillness before everything. Explodes, the note still sits on Violet's desk. They're coming. Be ready. It echoes louder than any alarm, and she is. She's been ready. Tyrn's voice pulses in her mind. Stay sharp. I feel something. She steps into her leathers, braid tight, blades strapped, across the room. Rhiannon already has her boots on. No words. Only a nod, a shared certainty. Whatever's coming, it's not a test. It's a reckoning. It happens mid-meal. The courtyard is loud, normal, laughter, routine, and then the first blast hits. Not fire, not lightning, but magic, raw, black. Ripping through the air like a curse, the sky darkens as if the sun is retreating. Cadets scream. Dishes crash, and in the next breath, the Veni are inside the walls. 3 of them robed, pale-eyed, gliding across stone, like shadows unbound. Not an invasion, a message they want to be seen. Instructors rush forward. Some fall instantly, struck by spells they don't understand. Others try to hold position, forming battle lines, but it's chaos. This isn't a skirmish, it's a slaughter. Until Violet stands, and then everything shifts. She steps forward without hesitation, sword drawn, channeling already humming through her veins. And Darna drops from the sky. Tyrn lands behind her, flame building in his throat. The cadets part around her like wind through wheat. She doesn't give a speech, she moves. The first venom strikes. A whip of corrupted magic slashes. Toward her, she deflects with glyphs carved in the air. Mid-dash motion, not elegant, just fast, brutal, controlled. She drives forward. Blade slicing across darkened robes, spinning, leaping. Cutting and turns, flame follows, a roar of vengeance. The courtyard becomes battlefield, stone shatters. Cries rise, but Violet doesn't fall back. Because this is what she was born into. Not safety, not silence, but resistance. Rhiannon and Sloane fight at her flanks. Exoden arrives. A blur of fury and shadow, and together they push back. Not perfectly. Not without injury, but with purpose, with fire. And when the final venom falls, seared into the ground, the courtyard is left in stunned silence. Bodies broken, walls scorched. Truth. Undeniable. There's no hiding anymore. No denying what the cadets saw. With their own eyes. And for the first time, they believe after the battle, command is eerily quiet. No lectures, no debrief, just cleanup. And that terrifies Violet more than the fight itself, because silence now means strategy. Punishment they meet in the war room. Hours later, Rhiannon's. Shoulder is bandaged. Sloane has a black eye. Riddick's arm is in a sling. Garrick is pale but upright. And Xaden is watching Violet like she's fire, and he's still not sure if it will warm him or consume him. They'll come for us, Imogen says. They already have, Violet replies. They won't stop, Riddick murmurs. Not until we're erased. We won't give them the chance, Violet says. She places the scorched insignia of one of the Venin onto the table. Burnt, broken, proof. The cadets believe us now. They've seen. If we move quickly, if we rally them, we can shift the tide before command rewrites it. Xaden's voice is quiet but firm. You want to build an army from students? I want to build an uprising. The plan is dangerous. Stupid. Even. But it's the only way. The only hope. They'll move at nightfall. Secure the archives. Take the south wing. Broadcast the scroll and venom-proof across the entire rider. Quadrant force command to acknowledge the truth or fall, trying to silence it. As dusk falls, they prepare swords. GLYPHS. Dragons circling overhead, and Violet. She walks alone for a moment. Just. A few minutes of quiet before the fire. She finds herself near the old memorial garden. Weeds. Overgrown. Names half-dash forgotten. And she touches one of the stones. Alina Sorrengail, her sister. The ghost who shaped her without ever meeting her eyes. And she whispers. The attack begins without warning. Not from them, but from command. Somehow they knew. And this time, they come armed. Instructors with enchanted weapons, squads of enforcers in full gear. Not against the Venin, against Violet. She fights anyway, leads anyway, bleeds anyway. Tyrn blasts. A corridor open with a roar of flame, and Darna glows with shimmering light that blinds the attackers. And in that chaos, Violet reaches the central hall, where the old truth scroll. Terminal still lies. She places the scroll, activates the rune, broadcasts the truth, Venin history. The ward's failure. Forbidden GLYPHS. All of it. Flashing across the sky like prophecy. For everyone to see. Command it. Farish arrives too late. Sword drawn, face a mask of fury. He lunges. And Violet meets him head dash on. No hesitation, no mercy there. Blades clash once. Twice. Then she fints. Spins. Strikes. And the Commandant falls. Not dead, but broken. And with him Basgiath's illusion of control begins to shatter. When it's over, its dawn is breaking. The courtyard is scorched again, but this time it's from truth, not from fire, not from silence. The cadets stand in stunned silence, watching as the scroll finishes its cycle. And Violet. She's bloodied, exhausted, but unbroken. Imogen limps toward her. Did we win? Violet doesn't answer. She just looks up at the sky, then whispers, We started. Dawn paints the horizon in red. Not the warm kind, the bleeding kind. The kind that makes everything feel like it's been pulled from the fire too late to cool. The rebellion has exposed the truth. They've lit the fuse, but now they're standing. In the crater, Violet limps through the corridor, every step echoing like a warning bell. She's not broken, but she's close. Rhiannon's arm is in a sling. Sloane has a stitched gash across her brow. Imogen's leg is bandaged tight. Xaden walks. Beside her, jaw clenched, silent, and the look in his eyes says everything. They won. But it doesn't feel like victory. Command has gone eerily quiet. The scroll broadcasted. The truth for nearly 7 minutes before the terminal was destroyed. 7 minutes. That's all it took to fracture the illusion, to rip the lie wide. Open, cadets watched from rooftops, from balconies, from behind iron gates where truth had never reached. And now, no one can pretend anymore. But no reinforcements come. No announcement, no orders, nothing. Only shadows moving behind glass. And Violet knows The kingdom. It's panicking. It's planning. Because that's what power does when it's cornered. It waits, sharpens, strikes. They gather in the ruined war room by mid-morning. The rebellion. No longer a secret circle, now a symbol. Tyrion coils outside the walls, Hines scanning the skies. And Darna sleeps, wings twitching in unrest. The air is heavy, with burnt parchment, broken promises, and something colder. Consequence. We need to move, Imogen says. Before they regroup, Riddick snorts. And go where? They control the skies. Not all of them, Rhiannon says quietly. Not anymore. She lays down a map smuggled from the command tower days ago. It shows old mountain paths. Abandoned. Outposts, places long erased from current navigation. Charts, but still real. Still possible. Still there's if they're fast. Violet stares at the map and feels something shift inside her. Not fear, not hope, but conviction. They've started the fire now. They need to survive it. They agree to evacuate at dusk to scatter. Regroup at a hidden mountain fortress outside, Gaiath's reach. Cadets willing to defect will be given coordinates and code through Dragon 2. Dragon, communication. It's risky, but there's no turning back now. Hours pass in silence. Violet walks. The academy one last time. She passes the parapet where her story began, where death and glory first danced. So close, she couldn't tell them apart. And she sees new cadets training. Even now, still unaware of the cost, still chasing power in a system built on rot, and it fills her with something almost like grief. Because once she stood where they stand, and now. Now she knows. Xaden finds her near the archery field. Neither of them speaks for a long time. Then finally, says when we leave, there's no coming back, I know. They'll brand us traitors. She turns to him, eyes steady. Then, we wear it like armor. Pause. Then he reaches for her hand. And for a rare moment, Violet lets herself feel it, the weight of his grip, the fire between them that never needed words. And for just one breath, she is not a soldier, not a rider, not a rebellion's heart, just a girl choosing. The escape begins as the sun begins to fall. Dragons swoop in quiet arcs. One by one, cadets climb onto saddles in silence. No farewells, no signals, just motion. Deliberate, desperate, defiant, Violet mounts Tyrion. Her heart thudding not with fear but clarity. Imogen signals from the southern gate. Rhiannon gives a thumbs up. Teeth gritted through pain. Sloane nods, once her sword strapped across her back like a vow, and then they launch. The wind is cruel, the sky is wide, but it is theirs. And for the first time since the rebellion began, Violet feels something impossible free. The journey is hard. Cold winds, thin air, dragons, tired from battle, but no one complains. Not even. All right, Doc. Because each mile is one more away from the lie. One more toward a place where truth might be enough. They reach the hidden valley just past midnight. An old rebel outpost carved into the mountain, half-ruined. But standing, safe for now, they land in silence. And when Violet steps off, turns back. Her knees nearly buckle. Not from exhaustion, from relief. Because they made it. They're alive. And now, the real war can begin. That night, gathered around the flickering hearth in the mountain keep, the rebellion doesn't speak in strategy. They sit in silence, in shared breath, in memory. And Violet finally asks herself the question she's avoided for months. Is this what my sister died for? And the answer, finally, is yes. Not because death was the cost, but because truth was the purpose. Later, Xaden finds her outside, looking at the stars. They're bright here, unfiltered by magic or war, just real like her, like what they're building. He stands beside her, not touching, just there. And Violet whispers, "We've changed everything," Xaden replies. "And everything will try to change us back," she nods. "But we're not going back." "No," he agrees. "We're burning forward." and they watch the stars together. Not because the war is over, but because it's only just begun. The rebellion's mountain refuge is colder than expected, not just from the altitude or the wind that creeps through the broken stone halls, but from everything left unsaid. It's been 3 days since they escaped. BASGIA 3 days since Violet detonated the truth across the sky. 3 days since she stopped running from the cost of knowing and started preparing for what comes next. But that doesn't mean it's been easy. There are no attacks, no flaming skies, no crashing walls, only silence. A dangerous, untrustworthy kind. Xaden spends his days coordinating patrols with Tyar. Imogen is deep in glyph research, barely speaking. Rhiannon works double shifts with the scouts, and Violet. She drifts, not aimless but searching, as if something inside her cracked wide open when they left Bisgayath. Now? The pieces won't settle. She finds herself wandering to the edge of the valley most nights, staring at the frozen lake, listening to the wind and remembering her mother, her sister Dame. Liam, what she's lost, what she's become, what she might still lose before this war is over. And Darna joins her often. The dragon's presence is comforting, curious, almost maternal in moments. They don't speak out loud, but they understand each other. And Darna doesn't ask questions. She simply is, which is more than Violet can say for herself right now. She finally breaks the silence on the 4th day, calls. A meeting in the main chamber, all of them. Everyone who followed her out of Bisgayath, even the uncertain ones, even the young ones, even the ones who look at her with awe, she knows she doesn't deserve. She stands before them with no speech, no prepared words, only truth, raw, exposed. I don't have all the answers, she begins. I don't even know if what we did was the right thing. But I do know this. She lifts her chin. They were never going to save us. We were never supposed to survive. Silence then. Footsteps, and Xaden walks to her side. I watched my father die for a lie, he says. I watched my friends bleed so that others could sleep behind walls they believed were real. I won't watch that happen again. Imogen follows. RHINNON.RI Doc. Sloan. And then more and more, until she's no longer. Alone in the center of the hall, she's surrounded. Later that night, Violet sits beside the fire alone, her skin warm, but her thoughts colder than snow. Xaden approaches, pulling his cloak tighter, his hair damp from the snow. You were brave today, he says. She scoffs. I was honest. It's not the same. It is to them. A long pause. Then she asks what she's been avoiding for days. Why didn't you stop me? That night at Bisgayath, when I triggered the scroll, when I stepped into the fire. Why didn't you pull me back? His answer is quiet, because I knew. You'd never forgive me. She exhales slowly. That's not the real reason. He doesn't deny it, but he doesn't offer another. Instead, he reaches for her hand, and this time, she lets him hold it. They don't speak of the rebellion that night, or the venom, or the next phase of resistance they speak of before. A 4th wing, of their first sparring match, of Liam, of loss. And somewhere in the quiet between words, they find a kind of peace. Not the lasting kind, but the kind that holds you upright. When the world tries to fold you in half, the next morning, the peace fractures. A scout returns from the eastern ridge, breathless, bleeding, shaking. They're coming. He gasps. Not soldiers, not dragons. Violet's blood freezes. Then what? Scout's eyes are wide, terrified venom. 3 of them, channeling in daylight. That's all she needs to hear. By nightfall, the valley is fortified. Glyphs etched. Into stone, watch rotations tripled. Dragons posted in the skies. Violet moves through it all like a storm. Just shy of breaking, focused, sharp, ready, because she knows now, there is no escape. Not from war, not from legacy, not from the fire she lit. Herself, she stands at the southern wall as the wind howls. Tyaren behind her, Xaden beside her, Rhiannon to her left, and she whispers, "We'll hold." Not because she believes they're safe, but because that's what leaders say. That's what Sorrengail say. Even when the world is burning down around them. Asterisk the dawn. Air is electric. Every breath feels like it carries lightning. Violet stands atop the southern keep's ramparts, watching twin suns rise over the valley. Below, the rebellion's ragged banners flutter in the wind. Black on red a warning, and an invitation behind her. Tyrn shifts restlessly, and Darna perches on a nearby parapet, scales glinting. They feel it too. The gathering storm. She draws a deep, steadying breath. Today, every choice she's made, the betrayals exposed, the alliances forged, the blood spilled leads to this moment. In the courtyard, the rebellion assembles, cadets and scholars, healers and scholars, and a handful of dragons. Their faces are drawn, but their eyes burn with determination. Violet steps forward, her blade at her side, and addresses them without flourish. We stand between a kingdom built on lies and a future forged in truth. Today we do not wait for the enemy, we bring the fight to them. A murmur ripples through the crowd. They know the cost, but they choose to stand. At her signal, riders mount. Dragons snort embers into the rising sun. Xaden takes his place at her side. He meets her gaze. No words are needed. They move as one. They ride out the southern gate, Violet, leading the charge down a narrow mountain pass, carved by ancient ward. Magic. Beyond the pass, they emerge onto the shattered plains, the ruined bastion where the original wardstones once stood. Now, only fractured pillars and jagged ruins remain. This is ground zero, where the Venin will attempt to reclaim power. Violet lifts her sword, ancient runes glowing along the blade's fuller. She whispers, "For Alina, for everyone erased." From the sky, the Venin arrive. 10 of them, towering and spectral, their black robes trailing like smoke. They descend upon the rebellion with brutal grace spells, crackling, earth trembling. The clash is cataclysmic. Dragonfire meets shadow magic. Riders fall, then rise again. Violet fights in the heart of it, deflecting. A lance of corrupted flame, then countering with a glyph of searing light that cracks the ground. She moves through the fray like a whirlwind, each strike precise, each breath measured at her side. Xaden duels a Venin, whose power twists the air into razor-sharp currents. When he falters, Violet dives in, her blade singing as it severs the cord of shadow magic binding him. But victory bites. As the Venin stagger, the ground quakes. From the shattered wardstones, tendrils of raw magic erupt greenish, otherworldly snaking toward Violet's forces. She sees the danger. If those tendrils touch the dragons, they'll become conduits for corruption. With a roar, Tyrn blasts a wave of dragonfire, breaking the magical tendrils. And Darna counters with a pulse of pure light, purifying the land beneath them. Riders press forward, pushing the Venin back toward the broken altars. Violet spots the lead Venin sorcerer, towering eyes ablaze. He raises a hand, summoning a pillar of shadow. She plants her feet, channels every ounce of her forged power, and plunges her blade into the earth. The runes on her sword flare. A wave of golden light surges outward, colliding with the pillar of shadow and shattering it into motes of Ashdod. The battlefield falls silent. When the dust settles, Venin are gone, banished, broken, or fled. The wardstone ruins crack, then glow green as new magic seeps into the earth. The fledgling power of Violet's revolution. She lowers her sword, body trembling with exhaustion and triumph. Around her, the rebellion cheers, tears and laughter mingling, but she feels only the weight of what's to come. At sunset, they return to the mountain fortress. In the great hall, they gather once more, scarred, weary, but unbowed. Violet addresses them one last time. Today, we prove that truth can hammer down walls, that the hearts of dragons and riders alike still burn for justice. We will rebuild what was lost. We will honor every name erased. And we will stand as guardians of a new era. Silence. Then uproarious acclaim. Later, in the quiet of her chambers, Violet, pen and ink in hand, writes a new entry into the rebellion's chronicle. Chapter 1. The Ember Ignited. She pauses, glances at a small portrait of her sister pinned to the wall, smiles, bitter and hopeful. Above her, dragons snore softly, wards glow faintly in the stone. And outside, the first true dawn of peace breaks across the valley. Because sometimes the fiercest battles are the ones we choose to fight. Dawn in the mountain fortress arrives on a hush of rumors and shifting shadows. Violet awakens to news that emissaries from the outlying duchies have arrived, some bearing banners of support, others seeking parley or surrender. Across the hall, Xaden meets her gaze, exhaustion and wary hope in his eyes. They want assurances, he says. They need our word that Biscayas' old guards are gone. She nods. Then we give it. By mid-morning, the great hall is crowded. Noble riders in unfamiliar livery, hardened militia captains, and reluctant abbots all under the vaulted stone ceiling once built for coronations. Now it hosts a fragile congress. Violet stands at the dais, flanked by Xaden in her inner circle. Tiernan and Darna perch in balconies above, their silent presence a reminder that dragons still choose their champions. One by one, duchy representatives rise. Lady Marisol of Davencrest pledges her wyvern battalions. High Marshal Voss of the Iron Guard demands trials for Basgayath's commandants. The abbot of the Quarry Hill Monastery warns of old magic stirring beneath the earth. Each testimony adds weight and complication. Allies and ulterior motives weave a tapestry, too intricate for simple victory. When the final speaker finishes, a young baron whose lands were drained by venom, Magic Violet steps forward again. Her words are calm, measured. We stand not to seize power, but to protect it. We will forge a council of equals, riders and rulers, scholars and soldiers bound by oath and overseen by dragonkind. Only together can we rebuild what was broken. Murmurs ripple through the hall. Some nod in agreement. Others frown with skepticism. After the Congress, Violet is approached by a gray-robed envoy ambassador of the old empire beyond the Ash Falls. He offers safe passage and resources in exchange for the dragon relic she wields. She refuses. Relic belongs to all who fight for truth. It will remain where it can serve as beacon, not bargaining chip. The envoy bows stiffly, masking disappointment with courtesy. Elsewhere into the crowd. Elsewhere in the fortress, alliances strain. Imogen and Rhiannon argue over distributing supplies to border towns. Riddick and Sloane clash on defensive strategy. Garrett quietly mediates with the wisdom of one who's seen too many die. Violet watches them. Their conflicts mirror the larger fractures in the realm. That evening, she and Xaden ride beyond the fortress walls, just the two of them, seeking the clarity silence grants. Across the icy fields, the last vestiges of venom fallout shimmer. Under the moons, they speak of everything and nothing. Past regrets, future hopes. The impossible love that neither can fully claim until the world stands whole again. On their return, they find word that Basgayath's remnants have formed anew. Order under a ruthless warlord. He's burning villages suspected of rebellion, using Venet-wisted magic to terrorize the populace into submission. The rebellion must act. Back in the war room, Violet maps out a strike. Send a small elite force to rescue prisoners in Rhodes. Hollow dismantled the warlord's dark wards and free the dragons bound in his service. It's a mission laced with Paraland potential betrayal. But to do nothing is to let the fire spread. She calls the volunteers. Among them, Xaden Rhiannon, Imogen, and a reluctant Riddick. Even Sloane raises her hand. Violet meets each gaze. We ride at first light. We return with our people, or we don't return at all. No hesitation follows. Only grim determination. Late that night, Violet writes in her journal, "Today we sow seeds of hope in fields scorched by fear. May they grow in spite of the ashes." She closes the book and places her hand on the dragon relic. It pulses warmly life in her palm. Outside, the fortress stands quiet, but Violet knows dawn will shatter that calm. For some battles are fought not with swords alone, but with the courage to plant tomorrow in the soil of today. Asterisk, asterisk. The sky above the mountain fortress is bruised, storm-gray clouds churning as if in warning. At dawn, Violet convenes her strike team in the war room. Xaden, Rhiannon, Imogen, Sloane, and Rydick. Maps are spread wide, plans sketched in candlelight. Roth's Hollow lies beyond the frosted pass, Violet says. We ride on two fronts, air and ground. Tyrn and Andarna lead the aerial assault. Our team moves over land. Group nods, faces taut with purpose. Even Garrick, leaning heavily on his cane, stands. By mid-morning they depart. Dragons thunder skyward. Riders follow on foot along a ribbon of snow-crusted trail. The wind is a blade, each gust a reminder. They carry hope and a desperate urgency. They reach the outskirts of Roth's Hollow by midday. Smoke curls above. The treetops. In the distance, the warlord's banner's black wings on a field of flame flutter against stone ramparts. We're too close for stealth, Imogen whispers. They'll see us. Violet nods, then let them. 8. And Tyrn burst through the gates before the ground team arrives. Dragons roaring a signal and a distraction. Shouts echo. Alarms ring. It's from the battlements. Armored riders pour out spears and flame. On the ground, Violet's group charges. Rhiannon and Sloane flank to breach the west wall. Riddick and Imogen race to free bound villagers. Violet strides to the central courtyard, where prisoners lie chained on frost-bitten stones. In the courtyard's heart stands the warlord, cloaked in rune-etched armor that pulses with stolen venom magic. His grin is cruel. "Ah, Sorrengail," he hisses. "Your little revolt grows wings?" He raises his staff, summoning emerald arcs of corrupted energy. Violet draws her blade, runes igniting along the fuller. This ends now. She lunges. Meets shadow. Magic spirals around them. Each clash sends sparks that catch on the frozen ground. Meanwhile, Rhiannon and Sloane break through the west wall's gatehouse, swords singing. They cut chains and usher prisoners to safety. Imogen disables. Ward traps with whispered glyphs. Riddick covers their retreat, picking off reinforcements with deadly precision. Above, Tyrn and Andarna, dual Shadow Wyrm's creatures, grafted from Venan experiments. Dragonfire meets corruption, cleansing the skies. Back in the courtyard, the warlord's staff cracks Violet's shield ward, sending her sprawling. He laughs, raising the staff for a killing blow, but Xaden arrives. Cutting the staff in two with a single strike, the warlord snarls, unleashing a wave of raw Venian energy that shatters the courtyard's frozen fountains. Violet pushes to her, feet pain lacing her limbs. Together, she breathes. They join forces, blade and shadow, rider and rider driving the warlord backward. With a final shattering strike, Violet's sword severs the corrupted wound in his armor. The warlord collapses. His magic unravels, dissipating like smoke in sunlight. As the warlord is bound, the team gathers the villagers and freed prisoners. Their eyes are wide, fear giving way to gratitude. Violet addresses them briefly. "You are safe now. This fortress falls to you if you choose to rebuild." A healer rushes to tend to wounded captives. Children run toward Imogen, clutching her coat. Hope blooms amidst the frost. That evening, back at the fortress, Violet convenes a tribunal for the warlord's lieutenant's officers who enforced his terror. Some beg for mercy, as others spit defiance. At Violet's command, they're given a choice: stand trial by the new council, or face exile and certain death in the wilds. One by one they kneel. Later, in her chamber, Violet pores over new intelligence. Reports of Venom cell activity in far-flung border towns. The warlord was only one node in a larger network. She closes the dossier and looks at the dragon relic on her desk. "The war is not over," she murmurs, and in the hearth's glow, The relic pulses, as if in agreement. In the courtyard, Xaden finds her. They're mobilizing in the north, he says. Thousands of troops, dragons too. She nods. Then we give them a reason to remember us. He smiles grim but fierce and takes her hand. We ride at dawn. Nightfall arrives on wings of ash. Violet stands with Xaden atop the northern rampart, watching distant fires line the horizon enemy encampments, forming beneath a sky streaked red by war. Behind them, the fortress hums with readiness. Dragons, roosted in guard positions, riders sharpening blades, healers primed for injury. She rests a hand on Tyrion's flank. This is it, she whispers. The world either burns, or we save it. At dawn, the rebellion's forces advance. Dragons scream overhead, carving paths through swirling shadow magic unleashed by the Venin. On the ground, Violet leads the vanguard, Imogen at her side, Rhiannon covering the flanks, Riddick and Sloane forming the rear guard. Their charge echoes like thunder across ruined battlements. They encounter the enemy at the broken bridge, a collapsed stone. Span over a chasm of emerald sickly light, Venin sorcerers stand along the far edge, summoning grotesque horrors from the rift below. Twisted abominations born of ancient ward corruption. Hold here, Violet commands. Dragons, clear thee. Skies, riders, push forward. Tyrion and Andarna surge, tearing through shadow wirms with torrents of fire and light. Riders follow, vaulting over broken stone, blades flashing. Violet leaps onto a central ruin, raising her sword skyward. Her voice carries on the roar. For every life they erased, for every truth they buried. We rise. Her war cry reverberates through the valley, igniting courage in weary hearts. The final battle is brutal and swift. Imogen's glyphs unravel enemy wards, collapsing their front lines. Rhiannon leaps between foes, shield raised, drawing blows meant for others. Sloane charges a Venin lieutenant, her blade forged in grief, now wielded with purpose. Riddick covers their retreat, picking off stragglers with cold precision at the chasm's edge. Violet confronts the lead Venin sorcerer, ancient, nearly formless eyes burning with undying hate. Spells clash, light fractures. Every strike sends shockwaves through the bridge's ruins. Finally, with a cry, Violet plunges her sword into the sorcerer's core, channeling the relic's ancient power. A blinding flare erupts, and the shadow sorcerer dissipates like smoke. As the enemy lines crumble, dragons roar in victory. The chasm's sickly green haze recedes, replaced by dawn's golden light. But victory tastes of ash. The broken bridge, so long the rebellion's symbol of hope, is finally restored by Violet's magic, but only barely. Steel and stone fuse with glowing runes, fragile lifelines spanning the abyss. Riders cross, helping the wounded. Later, in the solemn calm after horror, Violet kneels by the restored bridge. Touching the runes she ignited, a soft voice echoes in her mind, turns ancient wisdom. You've saved them, but at what cost? She closes her eyes, remembering every loss, every sacrifice, at the cost of who we were, and for the birth of who we must become. Back at the fortress, Violet addresses the survivors. Today we reclaimed more than ground. We reclaimed truth. Let this bridge stand as proof that even the deepest chasms can be crossed when we fight together. Silence, then heartfelt cheers. That night, Violet and Xaden stand side by side, overlooking the valley. No words pass between them, just shared understanding. The world has changed. They've changed. And tomorrow, they will begin to rebuild. Asterisk, asterisk. The dawn after victory is eerily still. Violet rises before the sun, the fortress silent save for distant stirrings of life. She finds herself drawn to the memorial garden at the fortress's Harta, a place where names of the fallen are carved into obsidian slabs. She kneels before a blank stone, feeling the weight of every sacrifice etched into her memory. In the soft morning light, the names of Alina Sorrengail and countless others shimmer faintly in the dew. We honor you with every breath we claim, she whispers, tracing a finger along the cold stone. Inside the council chamber, Ambassadors and rebellion leaders gather for the first formal assembly of the new order. Sunlight filters through stained glass windows depicting dragons and riders united at the dais. Violet stands beside Xaden and her inner circle around them. Representatives from every allied duchy sit in uneasy harmony once foes, now bound by necessity. Today we begin the true work of rebuilding, she announces, voice steady but layered with gravity. We will establish new laws, equitable governance, and a council guided by dragon wisdom and human compassion. Murmurs of approval and cautious optimism ripple through the hall, but not everyone approves. A delegation from the Iron Guard rises. Their leader, Captain Varus, a stern veteran, voices a complaint. Your revolution saved us, but your rules risk anarchy. Mines lie untapped. Villages need food. Who will feed us? Who will lead us?
Now Violet's gaze is unwavering.
We will. Together. We acknowledge shortcomings. We will rebuild economies, restore wards, and ensure all voices are heard. Xaden steps forward, offering maps and resource plans drawn by scholars. We have the knowledge. We have the people. We need unity. The assembly continues, debates igniting and resolving. The first sparks of policy and progress by midday. Violet retreats to the archives, a sanctuary of knowledge now reopened to all. She searches for documents on ward restoration and dragon bonding rituals. Determined to safeguard the peace they won with blood, she unearths a forgotten scroll detailing ancient rites to stabilize wards using combined dragon and human mana. The text is cryptic but promising. This could heal the land, she murmurs. That evening, Fortress Courtyard fills with songs and laughter for the first time since the uprising. Tables groan under harvest feasts. Children chase each other around torchlight. Dragons perch quietly, curious. Violet and Xaden stand at the edge of the revelry, watching hope bloom in real time. Look at them, Xaden says. A world reborn. She rests her head on his shoulder. We gave them this. He squeezes her hand, and we'll protect it. Late night, Violet returns to the memorial garden. The names now shine with new. One's added heroes who fell at Roth's Hollow, the Broken Bridge, and beyond. She lights a small candle at the base of Elena's stone. I did this for you, sister, she whispers. You'll never be erased again. Behind her, Andarna lands softly. The golden dragon's presence is a promise. Violet smiles through tears, knowing the path ahead is still fraught with danger, but that they have the courage to walk it in. Her quarters, she writes one final journal entry. Today, it forged not just a victory, but a covenant that truth once freed can bind us in unity, stronger than any ward. Tomorrow, our work continues. She closes the book, heartful. Outside, dragons dream beside their riders. Wards glow faintly along the southern ridge. The first true dawn of peace glimmers across Navarre and Violet Sorrengail. Once forged in flame, now stands as its guardian, Arnwild, hopeful and unbreakable. Morning light filters through fractured ward stones, casting fractured patterns across the council. Chamber floor. Violet arrives for the day's proceedings to find two unexpected guests, representatives from the Venin Enclave survivors who surrendered. After the battle at the Broken Bridge, their presence is uneasy but necessary. We seek amnesty, their spokesman intones, voice echoing with tension. We wish to live without fear, to restore honor to Venin that was perverted. Murmurs. Ripple. Some nobles turn away. Militia grumble. Violet studies their bowed heads and weary eyes. The line between enemy and ally has always been drawn by perspective. We will offer you terms, she replies, voice measured, reparation for wrongs, service to rebuilding wards and truth in your histories. But betray us again in this. Covenant breaks. The Venin envoy bows. A fragile peace is signed. After the assembly, cotton in hand, Violet retreats to the archives to research restorative magics. She pores over ancient tomes, describing ritual penance, rite spells requiring dragons and Venin participants to share breath and blood to heal corrupted land. She notes the personal cost. Participants emerge changed, their bonds forever altered. No mercy without accountability, she murmurs. In the afternoon, Sloane seeks her out. The younger rider's face is pale. My family, they survived the purge of allied towns, Sloane says. But their lands lie barren under venom's scars. Violet places a hand on her shoulder. Then we'll heal them together. Sloane nods, tears in her eyes. That evening, the first restorative rite is held in the ruined courtyard. Dragons and Venin stand side by side and Omi's turned penitent. Violet leads the ceremony, chanting ancient words. Green magic spirals through the stones, knitting cracks, banishing taint. Benin, participants share controlled breaths with Andarna, relinquishing shadow to light. When it ends, the courtyard blooms with new growth vines and moss weaving through stone. Tonight, Violet proclaims, we reclaim the world. Late night, Violet pauses alone at the fortress edge. She gazes at lands healing in the glow of renewed wards. Tyrn appears behind her, silent sentinel. He offers one thought, clear as flame. Leadership demands sacrifice. Are you ready? She closes her eyes. For every life, yes. Back in her chambers, she pens a final journal entry. Mercy is forged in the fire of accountability. Tonight we planted the seeds of true healing and accepted the price outside Dragon's Dream of Dawn. A new era has begun, one where truth, justice, and compassion must walk the razor's edge. And Violet Sorrengail, tempered by flame and forged by choice, stands ready to guide them all. Asterisk, asterisk, dawn greets. Violet with a tremor that ripples through the fortress. Battle horns echo from the eastern wall. Scouts report. A Venin splinter cell attempting to sabotage the newly restored wards. Violet stands on the ramparts. Tyrn and Andarna looming beside her. Below, riders rush to defend the wardstones glowing green with fresh magic. Hold the line, she commands. The skirmish is swift and brutal. Imogen's wards falter under shadow blasts, but renew when Violet channels dragon-bonded mana. Rhiannon shields civilians caught in the spillover. Sloane and Riddick hunt the saboteurs through twisting tunnels beneath the walls, yet one figure slips free, a hooded assassin bearing the mark of the Iron Guardian inside job. Violet feels the betrayal stab deeper than any blade. By midday, she summons Captain Varys before the council. Your guards aided this attack, she states. Varys' expression flickers between arrogance and fear. Overstate, he insists. Violet presses a hand to her relic sword. We'll stand trial by the new order, and if you betray us. Again, she leaves the threat unspoken, but the message lands heavy. In the afternoon shadows, Violet confides in Xaden. Power attracts poison. He nods. Then we must burn out the corruption before it consumes the whole order. At night, she convenes a secret tribunal in the vaults Varesh's old strongroom. The accused, 2 Iron Guard officers, a Venin defector, and, shockingly, a member of her own inner circle. Each hears their charges: conspiracy, sabotage, and attempted assassination. Sloane reads evidence, intercepted orders, coded messages. In the assassin's confession, one by one, they plead for leniency. Only the Venin defector kneels in genuine remorse. Violet passes judgment, banishment for the guard officers, reinstatement with strict oversight for the Venin, and exile from the order for her trusted insider. Justice is swift, but it tastes bitter. Late. She wanders the vault corridors alone, the weight of each verdict pressing on her shoulders. Darna finds her eyes soft. You carry too much. Violet closes her eyes. If I don't, who will? Before dawn, she pens another journal entry. Corruption festers in light and shadow alike. Tonight we struck at its heart, but the wound still bleeds. Vigilance is our only cure. She seals the pages, steels her resolve, and steps into the approaching dawn knowing the war for the soul of Navarre has only just begun. Asterisk, asterisk. Night in the fortress is restless. Violet can't sleep, her mind replaying tribunal. Echoes, ward breaches, and the next inevitable conflict. She ascends the spiraled stair to the ancient vaults, drawn by a whisper in her blood and the dim glow of lanterns. She uncovers a hidden alcova chamber etched with her family's crest and runes. Older than any she's seen at the center, a stone basin filled with silvered water. The legend spoke of a skywell. A relic of first riders said to reflect true bloodlines, hands trembling. Violet kneels and gazes into the water's surface. As she touches the basin's edge, visions surge. Her mother, young and fierce, wielding flame with effortless grace. Her sister Alina, laughing beneath cherry blossoms. The ancient wardmakers chanting beneath twin moons. A voice whispers in her mind, "Remember who you are." She emerges changed. No longer merely Sorrengail the survivor, but heir to a lineage woven into Navarre's very foundation. Turns rumble echoes. You found your truth. She nods. And now, claim it. The next morning, she calls her. Inner circle to the vaults. We have the relic of our past, she announces, gesturing to the skywell. We'll use its power to reinforce wards and unite riders through shared legacy. Rhiannon and Imogen exchange excited glances. Staden bows his head respectfully. Even Sloane looks odd. That afternoon, under storm-dark skies, Violet leads a ritual atop the fortress parapets. Water from the skywell is poured into a chalice, then cast into the southward wardstones. Runes flare with silver light as ancestral. Magic weaves through stone. Dragons roar, winds shift, and across Navarre. Ward lines pulse with renewed strength. Villages' long-forgotten report flickers of life, but power carries a price. Violet collapses, drained to the marrow. Her hand tightens on the chalice, knuckles white. Xaden catches her, supporting her weight. You gave too much, he says. She manages a weak smile. Some blood must be spilled to heal. That evening in her chamber, Violet records in her journal. We heal the land by offering ourselves. May my blood bind these wards as forever as my promise to protect them. She sets the pen down, fingers stained, and stares at her reflection. No longer girl, but legacy incarnate, outside. The fortress stands against the gathering storm, a beacon of silver flame and darkening clouds. And Violet Sorrengail, heir of Skywell, stands ready to defend it with every drop of her forged blood. The first light of dawn glimmers across a battlefield strewn with broken spears and fading embers. Violet stands at the head of the eastern gate, flanked by Xaden, Rhiannon, and the surviving rebels. Behind them lie the ragged wards of atriums, hollow flickering, unstable, threatening to collapse. She lifts her blade. Its runes dimmed from the last great sacrifice, but still whole. This ends today, she proclaims, voice ringing against stone. We burn the lies, or they burn us. Beyond the gate, the Venin horde swarm twisted beasts and shadow sorcerers, their numbers bolstered by the rift's stirrings. Dragons clash overhead, filling the sky with roars and fury. Violet steps forward. At her signal, the rebellion surges. The battle is elemental. Xaden and Violet charge side by side, their blades carving light through shadow. Rhiannon's shield holds the line as refugees stream past. Terran and Darna unleash torrents of purified flame and radiant light. Cadets once cowed by lies now fight with the clarity of truth. Each strike tears at the Venin's hold. Each roar shatters corrupted wards. In the heart of the fray, Violet confronts the rift's wound, jagged crack in the earth spewing green. Miasma. At its center, a colossal Venin avatar formed of bones and dark magic awaits. The avatar's voice rumbles. You cannot banish what is born of despair. Violet plants her feet on ancient stone. Then let us be the flame that forges. Hope from despair, she drives her blade into the rift's edge. The runes glow. Dragonfire arcs from Tyrn. Darna's light converges on the blade's tip. A blinding convergence light, flame and ancient magic erupts. The crack shudders. Avatar howls as it's drawn into the light. The rift's miasma recoils. The battlefield goes silent. When the glow fades, the earth has healed the fissure sealed with glowing silver veins. The avatar is gone. Violet collapses forward, exhausted. Blade bursting into embers that drift skyward like new stars. Xaden catches her. You did it, he whispers. She smiles through tears and pain. We did it. The storm breaks. With a final roar, dragons and riders unite in triumphant cry. Refugees emerge to witness the miracle. Atrium's hollow alive again, wards humming in renewed harmony. Allies and former foes kneel before Violet. The new order swears allegiance, not out of fear but belief. Later in the rebuilt council chamber, Violet stands once more at the dais. Behind her, the silver glow veins pulse in the walls. Before her, representatives of every faction. Today we are not survivors, she declares. We're stewards of a world reborn. Let our legacy be one of truth, unity, and the flame that never dies. The hall erupts in unanimous acclaim. That night, Violet and Xaden walk the battlements. The air is warm with the scent of ward healing, wards, and dragon embers. He turns to her, voice soft. What now? She lifts her eyes to the horizon, where the first stars of peace burn bright. We build together. Asterisk, asterisk, peace, once an impossible dream, now hangs in the air like delicate glass, beautiful, but breakable. It has been 3 days since Violet sealed the rift and shattered the Venon's last hope for dominion. But even as the dragons rest, as the skies clear, the realm's wounds bleed in subtler ways. Inside the fortress, messengers come by the hour. Disputes over food distribution, territory lines, leadership claims. Peace is not passive. There's 1,000 fires needing constant tending. Violet sits at the round table, once a war council, now the foundation of the new order. Today's debate: how to handle the fractured southern territories. Several former governors seek control, using lineage and land grants as leverage. They're using old laws to stake new claims, Rhiannon mutters. Violet listens to each argument, face unreadable. Power cannot be inherited anymore, she finally says. It must be earned and proven to serve the people, not the powerful. She proposes elections, a radical idea. The room stills. After a long pause, a young cadet claps, then another. The wave grows. The order approves. Later in the archives, Violet unrolls a forgotten map of ancient Navarre. Hidden paths and lost sanctuaries, the parchment. Roads carved by rider kind, long erased from modern records. She turns to Imogen. If we rebuild, we must remember what came before. The world they tried to bury. Imogen nods, eyes glinting. Let's uncover it, every path, every secret. Meanwhile, in the healing halls, Xaden trains younger cadets not in war, but in balance. He teaches them when not to strike, when to lead through restraint. Violet watches from the doorway. You're becoming what they feared you'd be, she says quietly. Not a weapon, but a guide. Xaden turns, a faint smile playing on his lips. And you're becoming what they hoped you'd never be enchained. That night, a quiet ceremony is held for the fallen. Violet lights a lantern for Imogen and for Varys. For Sloane's sister, for every name carved into the new memorial wall, and for her sister, Lena. Your legacy lives in every breath of freedom, she whispers. The sky glows with drifting lanterns. Dragons howl low and soft in the distance. Is their song a hymn for those who will not see this new world? But not all are content. Rumors begin to circulate of unrest beyond the eastern mountains, mercenaries who refuse to kneel, rogue scholars researching forbidden wardcraft, whispers of the gray flame, cult born from the ashes of the Venom. Peace, Violet realizes, is not the end. It's a beginning. In her journal she writes, "We fought to win. Now we fight. To hold what we've claimed. The truest battles are not waged in fire, but in forgiveness, rebuilding, and memory." She closes the cover and looks out across the battlements. Navarre lies quiet. For now, and Violet Sorrengail, no longer just rider, warrior, or heir now, bears the mantle of architect. Of a kingdom forged in truth, held together by iron will. An undying flame. Asterisk, asterisk rain falls gently on the spires of the rebuilt fortress. Not the storm rain of war, but something softer. A lull, a moment to breathe. Violet walks the halls alone, fingertips grazing the new ward stones. She's memorized every crack and rune. These stones are her inheritance, her oath, and her burden. Today, the path leads her back underground, to to the sealed chamber no one else knows exists. With Imogen gone, Violet has the only remaining key to the vaults beneath the archives. She descends through torchlit corridors, stopping at a wall carved with the crest of the first wing leaders, a symbol so old even the dragons only half remember it. Inside, the remnants of the ancient archive. And, on the pedestal, the book, the one she wasn't supposed to find. She opens the cover, ash spills out, scattering across the stone floor. And beneath it, a letter, unmarked, folded, bound with wax sealed in silver. She breaks the seal. The letter is addressed to her. From her mother, if you're reading this, it means I failed to protect you. And now, you must decide whether the truth saves or condemns. The letter reveals the truth behind the original Wardmakers. They weren't only warriors, they were Venin, those who turned away from destruction to create something greater. Her mother writes of the pact that began it all, that dragon kind agreed to bond only with those who could carry both light and shadow. Your magic isn't a curse, it's the bridge. The revelation shakes Violet to her core. All her life she believed Venin were the enemy. That her magic, so often unstable, unpredictable, was an inheritance of danger. But now she knows, it's balance, not destruction.
At salvation?
A razor's edge between them. She returns to Rhiannon and Xaden, sharing the letter, the symbols, and the truth. Rhiannon speaks first. If this spreads, everything we've built could fall apart. Xaden nods slowly. Ed. We become them. The ones who buried the truth to maintain power. The trio debates through nightfall. Should they tell the Order that the Wardmakers were once Venin? Can they risk more division, right when peace is beginning to hold? In the end, Violet decides they will reveal it, but carefully. Thoughtfully. We'll start with the Riders, she says. Those who swore to protect, not to dominate. The next day, Violet addresses the Academy. Not from the dais of command, but from the sparring ring, where the truth was always earned, not given. The truth has always been more dangerous than any sword, but we will no longer wield ignorance as armor. She tells them everything. Gasps echo, cries of denial, also understanding. The dragons do not speak. They don't need to. Their silent presence is approval enough. Afterward, a group of young riders approaches Herthos, once afraid of their shadow-touched abilities. You gave us permission to exist, one whispers. Violet smiles. No one should need permission to be who they are. That night, she writes, legacy is not built from perfection, but from truth, even the fractured kind. And for the first time in weeks, she sleeps, not with a blade beside her, but with the knowledge that what she's building isn't just a kingdom, it's a future. 2 weeks have passed since Violet told the truth about the Wardmakers, about the Venin origins, about the power that balances both light and shadow. Some call her reckless, others call her brave. She doesn't care. All she cares about is what comes next. The reconstruction of the Academy continues, stone by stone. The older towers still bear scorch marks in memory. But in the central courtyard, new seedlings rise. Gifts from villagers, carried on the backs of dragons. Offered as tribute not to a conqueror, but to a symbol, Violet walks among them at sunrise, barefoot in the grass. She feels the land healing beneath her toes. I still look to you, Xaden says behind her. She turns. He's carrying a ledger, one that lists every community in Navarre and how many riders they've asked to train. We can't protect them all, he adds quietly. Then we teach them to protect themselves, she replies. Inside the newly rebuilt archives, Rhiannon, Riddick, and the remaining scribes create the first manuals for wardcraft not bound by secrecy. Knowledge is no longer a weapon, Rhiannon says. It's a gift. Even Tyrn acknowledges the shift. A kingdom of truth endures longer than one built on fire. And Darna, smaller now after her latest molt, curls beside Violet and hums in. Soft agreement. A summit is called Violet's idea. Representatives from every region of Navarre gather. Not lords, not generals. People, farmers, blacksmiths, midwives, former rebels, and reformed Venin. Each is given a seat. Each is given a voice. There is shouting, disagreement, but no violence. By sunset, a charter is signed, the Accord of Sky and Flame, a new system of unity, where dragons and magic serve people, not the other way around. Later that night, Xaden finds Violet sitting on the walls, feet dangling over the edge. "You didn't sleep again," he says. "It's too much to do." Places a book in her lap. It's her journal, bound in dragonhide. "It's time," he says, "to stop surviving, to live." In a final gesture, Violet returns to the Skywell, the ancient spring where she first saw the truth of her legacy. She pours the ashes of her mother's last letter into the water. The silver ripples, reflection changes, she no longer sees. A girl caught between bloodlines. She sees a woman forged by battle, sharpened by pain, lifted by love. A rider, a rebuilder, a flame. In her last journal entry, Violet writes, "I was never meant to rule. I was meant to burn until the world around me caught fire, not with destruction, but with change. Let them come now, venom, scholars, cowards, kings. Let them test this new peace. They will find me waiting." And as the sun rises over Navarre, the wind carries the scent of ash and lavender, not of something ruined, but of something reborn. Asterisk, asterisk. The skies above Navarre are clear. For the first time in years, they are not watched in fear of shadow beasts or the burning wings of battle. The dragons sleep in the high meadows. The academy walls gleam under the rising sun whole, proud and scarred. Peace, fragile and defiant, clings to the air like breath before a kiss. Violet Sorrengail stands at the edge of the veil, not in armor, not with weapons, but in quiet clothes and bare feet, a book in her hand and silence in her soul. Today, she is not a soldier, not a leader, not the Iron Flame. Today, she is simply a woman saying goodbye. Behind her, Xaden approaches. His hair is longer now, curling slightly. He walks without the urgency of battle, but not without purpose. He carries a letter. "It came from Tyrande," he says. "The First Rider Corps has formed their own council. They want our blessing." Violet smiles softly. "Gave them fire. They are the ones keeping it alive." Together, they walk the Veil Trail. Below them, the academy bustles with rebuilding. Children chase dragons. Former rebels teach scribes how to craft wards with vines and river stones. Magic, once hoarded, now flows freely, and in the distance, at the far end of the valley, new towers rise. Homes, healing centers, archives. Navarre is no longer just a military stronghold. It is becoming a sanctuary. They reach the cliff overlooking the Skywell, and Darna circles above, dipping low in a spiral of gold. Her wings shimmer smaller now, but pulsing with new energy. The molt has changed her. Everything has changed. Violet kneels and opens her book. Not her old journal, a new one. The first page reads, "For those who come after. May you never forget what was lost to build what you inherit." Xaden sits beside her. "Do you miss it?" He asks. "The war. The edge." She doesn't answer right away. She listens to the wind, feels it in her chest. "No," she finally says, "but I remember it. Every breath of it." She looks at him. "We earned this. All of it. The peace. The pain. The promise." He threads his fingers through hers. "Then let's live it." Later that evening, a feast is held not for victory, but for remembrance. They eat beneath lanterns, shaped like dragons. Stories are shared, of Imogen's stubborn fire, of Rhiannon's perfect aim, of Sloane's sharp tongue, and of Violet's first flight. Laughter rings louder than tears, and for the first time, memory doesn't feel like mourning. It feels like legacy. As stars bloom in the sky, Violet speaks once more to the people of Navarre. No titles, no throne, just her voice. "We built this world from ash. It is imperfect, it is raw, but it is ours. Let no one ever again take what we will bleed to protect. Let this flame never die." And when the fire burns low and the people drift into sleep, Violet remains at the edge of the flame dash, watching, guarding, breathing, alive, in the final lines of her book. Violet writes, "They called me fragile, then they called me flame. I am both. I am more. The world did not end when the war did. It began. And I walk it now, not as a weapon, not even as a shield, but as the spark that lit the truth. Navarre endures. The dragons sing. Stars watch. And Violet Sorrengail rider, rebel. Legend fades from the firelight, not in defeat, but in purpose. Asterisk. Asterisk. Final reflection and thematic analysis of Iron Flame. Asterisk, asterisk, Iron Flame is not just the sequel to a story of dragons, war and rebellion. It is the burning heart of Violet Sorrengail's transformation. A story that began with survival becomes one of reconstruction. What was once about staying alive becomes about choosing how to live. Whereforth, Wing introduced a fragile girl thrust into a violent world. Iron Flame reveals what happens when that girl learns to wield both blade and truth and chooses to build, rather than burn, the world around her. Theme 1. Truth as a catalyst for change. The heart of Iron Flame is truth. Painful. Buried, dangerous truth. Violet learns that the greatest threat is not just an enemy on the battlefield, but the lies whispered by her own nation. The revelation that the Wardmakers were once Venin isn't just a plot twist, it's a metaphor. That power, no matter how dark its origin, can become something righteous when wielded with intention. Truth is not gentle here. It is fire, but it is also freedom. Violet chooses transparency in a world built on secrecy. And through that choice, she becomes not just a leader, but a legend. Theme 2. Power and responsibility. This book repeatedly forces Violet to grapple with a question. What do you do when you have the power to change the world? She refuses to. Use the Ember Sensor like a weapon. She doesn't hoard her abilities or her knowledge. She shares them, teaches others, and invites even her enemies into the rebuilding process. The lesson here is clear. True strength isn't in domination. It's in stewardship, in restraint, in knowing when not to strike. We fight for peace. She says, and peace must be protected like anything worth bleeding for. Theme 3. Legacy and rebirth. Death surrounds Violet in Iron Flame. She loses trusted friends. She buries the symbols of the old world, but instead of letting grief consume her, she lets it guide her. Every loss becomes a reason to build, to record, to make sure no one forgets what was sacrificed. Her final act, writing a book for those who will come after, is a poetic inversion of war. The pen becomes the flame that endures. Navarre, once a kingdom of fire and fear, becomes a place where dragons soar, not for conquest, but for peace. Character evolution. Violet Sorrengail. Violet's arc across the series is extraordinary. From fragile, mocked, and underestimated for her body and size, to fighter, proving herself through pain, outlasting those stronger, to flame, becoming a source of inspiration, revolution, and rebirth. She learns that her value was never in her ability to kill, but in her ability to choose compassion. When war made it feel impossible, she doesn't become a queen or a ruler. In the traditional sense, she becomes something rarer, a keeper of balance, a bridge between the past and the future, between shadow and light. They called me fragile. They called me flame. I am both. I am more. The emotional impact by the end of Iron Flame, there is no triumphant trumpet, no coronation. It's just Violet barefoot in the grass. With a book and a sky full of dragons, it's the quietness of this ending that resonates. That after the shouting and the fire, the true triumph is rest, is peace, is knowing the world will continue because of what she did. It's not about conquering kingdoms. It's about giving them the tools to never need conquering again. Broader reflections. Society and revolution. Rebecca Yarros doesn't just craft a fantasy here, she reflects real-world dynamics. How institutions protect power through silence. How revolution doesn't end with one battle, but must evolve. How storytelling, both written and lived, is the greatest tool for preserving change. The order that Violet helps build is not perfect, but it's different. and that, in a world terrified of difference, is revolutionary. Final message Iron Flame ends not with a crown, but with a spark. It reminds us that change is hard, slow, often painful, but also inevitable when kindled. By courage. Violet Sorrengail teaches us that we do not have to choose between fragility and strength, between pain and hope, between truth and survival. We can be all of it and still rise, and still lead, still burn beautifully, fiercely, purposefully, asterisk Iron Flame. Epilogue. Years later. Asterisk 5 years later, Navarre no longer smells of smoke and blood. It smells of lavender fields, of parchment ink, of dragon hide, soft in the sun. The Great War is now just a chapter in the history books, and Violet Sorrengail, once the spark that ignited a revolution, walks unnoticed through a new Navarre. Longer a battlefield, but a living archive of everything she helped rebuild. She lives in a cottage near the cliffs above the skywell. No guards, no banners. Just open air and wild grass, and a crooked bookshelf that keeps needing repairs. She teaches now not in a formal academy, but under the open sky, 3 times a week, a group of young riders in training gather in her field. They sit on rocks and stumps, wide-eyed as she reads from her own journals and those of the fallen, Imogen, Rhiannon, Sloane, even Varas. History isn't what happened, she tells them. It's what we choose to remember and how honestly we choose to tell it. In the village below, the people don't whisper her name with reverence. They smile at her in passing. Bring her bundles of herbs, ask for her help settling disputes. Because she commands them, but because they trust her. Violet Sorrengail is no longer flame. She is warmth at sunset. She walks the trail along the ridge with Zayden, whose hair has streaks of silver now, whose eyes have softened but never dulled. They say little, they don't need to. Sometimes, they pause to watch Andarna, circle in the distance, her form larger than ever now, streaked with radiant gold. She carries her own rider now, a girl barely 20, who once trembled when choosing her weapon and now leads her own wing. She found her legacy, Zayden says. Just like we did, Violet answers. The old council chamber is now a library. On its marble wall is a single engraved quote, "Let this flame never die." -V.S. Tourists trace the words with reverence. Cadets whisper them before first flights. Children draw it on parchment in their school books. It's not worship, it's memory. One morning, Violet receives a letter. It bears the seal of the southern provinces. A young girl has discovered a new warding pattern, something never documented, only dreamed of. She's asking for Violet's guidance. Violet tucks the letter into her satchel, already preparing her. Dragon for flight, because she's not done yet. The world may be mending, but it will always need keepers of flame. That night, as fireflies pulse in the grass, Violet sits by the hearth and opens the original copy of her book. The pages are worn, the ink faded, but her words still sing. I was not born to rule. I was born to burn the lies that claimed power should belong to the strong alone, and in the ash, I planted hope. She adds a final line, one she had never written until now. We went not, because we were fearless, but because we remembered what fear was, and chose to move forward anyway. As the fire crackles low and stars bloom overhead, Violet Sorrengail closes the book one last time. Outside, the wind carries the sound of dragons. In flight, but here, in this quiet place, peace holds steady, not fragile, not fleeting. Real, the flame endures. The legacy lives, and the rider rests. Asterisk, we'll sheath our swords here. Let the echoes of this chapter fade into the long memory of the Vale. If your eyes are heavy and your mind is already adrift on dragon wings, then the story has done its duty. Gentle Like tells me the flame still burns. A quiet subscribe ensures the next tale will be waiting steady as a tether, faithful as a bond. Until then, rest well, dream deep, and let the dragons keep watch while you sleep. Night drapes the forest in velvet darkness as Violet leads her team south of the fortress to the ruins of Aricia once, a thriving outpost. Now, a labyrinth of collapsed stone and dragon bones. Torchlight flickers against moss-clad walls. Imogen's glyph-etched lantern pulses with protective wards, warding off lingering venom taint. Violet pauses at the archway, inhaling the damp earth. "This place remembers," she says. We do not. They enter the central courtyard, where fractured dragon skeletons lie half-buried. The air tastes of iron and sorrow. Rhiannon shudders, their bones. They still hum with something. Violet kneels by a fractured femur, running a finger along ancient runes carved into the bone. "These runes predate our wards," she murmurs. "Risha was once more than a waypoint. It was a sanctuary." Imogen examines wall frescoes, faded murals depicting dragons and riders forging pacts beneath twin moons. A ritual site, she breathes. A binding. Violet's heart hammers. They weren't just guarding Navarre, they were creating its magic. In the deepest chamber, they find a sealed reliquary, heavy with age, bound by iron and dragonhide. Violet pries it open and withdraws a fractured censer, its bowl cracked. But still pregnant with dormant ash is the ember censer, she whispers, used to rekindle dying wards. She fans the ash into the air, glows with faint embers that swirl around them. Suddenly, the ground trembles. A low roar echoes from below. Venom constructs bone puppets, animated by dark magic, emerge from hidden alcoves. Their hollow eyes flare with malice. "Stay close," Violet commands. "Protect the censer at all costs." A fierce skirmish ensues. Rhiannon drives a bone warrior back with shield and blade. Riddick snatches fallen fresco fragments, using them to deflect air-like shards. Sloane weaves between constructs, her strikes precise and merciless. Xaden and Violet stand back to back, blending shadow and flame to shatter their bone armor. Imogen recites a ward chant, purifying the chamber. But the bone puppets keep coming. As the last construct falls, Violet places the ember censer in a carved niche at the chamber center. The embers ignite, sending a pillar of warm, silver smoke upward. Runes along the walls flare to life, illuminating the frescoes in ghostly light. The ash drifts outward, embedding itself in every crack. The old magic remembers. Violet breathes, in. The hush that follows, the team gathers around the censer's glow. Imogen smiles through tears. "We can use this to heal more than wards." Violet nods, resolve hardening. "We can revive hope." But as she turns to leave, a cold wind rushes through the chamber. A whispered voice echoes in her mind. All magic demands its price. Back. Above ground, Violet pauses beneath the night sky. The ember ash drifts from her hair. Tyrn lowers his head in solemn accord. "We carry their legacy," she says, "and their debt." That night, Violet inscribes in her journal, "We unearthed ancient fire to save Navarre. I pray its spark does not consume us all." Beyond the fortress walls, the new wards pulse with ember censer, magic bright, fragile, and alive, in Violet Sorrengail. Torchbearer of both truth and ancient flame, prepares for the next trial that her inheritance will demand. Pride on mist coats the fortress ramparts in cold dew. Violet stands alone. The weight of the ember censer's embers still warm against her skin. Behind her, the new wards flicker silver to fragile to new. Her breath puffs in the chill air. Today, everything will either hold or break. Inside the council chamber, in urgent summons, Ambassador Voss of the Iron Guard demands access to the ember censer for his forces, claiming that without it, their lands will collapse under renewed venom assaults. His tone is polite, but his stare's a blade. "Your magic is our only defense," he insists. "Deny it and we perish." Violet meets his gaze steadily. Ember is not a weapon to be wielded at command. It's a covenant given freely, upheld by trust. Discord ripples. Some nod. Others fume. After the heated debate, in the vaults, Violet confronts Varys, the Iron Guard captain she exiled. He has returned under guard, pleading for redemption. "I brought Voss's letter," he says. "He'll raise this fortress if denied." Violet's jaw tightens. Then he chooses war. Word arrives of Venom cells massing near Atrium's Hollow, the site of the first breach. Their numbers swell, drawn by rumors of the Ember's power. Xaden and Sloane report readiness. Dragons and riders poised for battle. Imogen deciphers old texts hinting that overuse of Ember magic could awaken the ancient rift beneath the Hollow, unleashing a cataclysm worse than any war. "We can't use it," she warns. "Not again." A final council vote divides allies. Some back Voss's demands, fearing annihilation. Others, Rhiannon, Imogen, and Riddick, stand with Violet. The chamber fractures, lanes of loyalty split as sharply as blade and shield as dusk falls. Ambassador Voss leads a contingent to seize the Ember Censer by force. Violet and her loyal guards, Aiden, Mogents, stand in the vault doors. "You leave me no choice," she says, voice low. A clash erupts, steel against steel. Words flaring, dragons roaring above. In the chaos, Varus rejoins the fray alongside Violet, cutting through Iron Guard, zealots seeking atonement for past treachery. But as they fight, the Ember Censer is seized by Voss's envoy, an old acquaintance of Violet's believed loyal. "Forgive me," the envoy whispers. Before crushing the censer to ash, a shockwave of raw Ember magic pulses outward, fracturing wards, sending the fortress into darkness. In the void, Venom emerge from shadows, drawn by the shattered embers. Violet leaps into the breach. She channels the last embers through her blade, igniting a surge of golden flame that holds back the Venom tide. Xaden and Rhiannon protect fleeing refugees with shadow wards. Imogen and Varez sacrifice themselves to restore partial wards, buying time as the fortress quakes. When the dust settles, the Ember Censer has vanished from ash and memory. Allies lie wounded or dead. The rift beneath Atrium's Hollow trembles. Violet kneels amidst the ruins, grief and fury tearing her heart. We lost everything to protect hope. In the aftermath, Ambassador Voss concedes defeat, realizing the Ember's power cannot be controlled. He swears fealty to the New Order, forging a tenuous alliance. Rhiannon and Riddick begin tending wards with ancient stone sigils. Xaden kneels beside Violet, voice broken. "I'm sorry." She grips his hand, tears mingling with soot. "We do what must be done for every life erased." That night, Violet records her final journal entry. "Sometimes the greatest power is the one you refuse to wield. In ash, we find beginnings. In loss, we carve hope." Outside, the rift's rumble quiets. Wards flicker. A new dawn-scarred, but unbroken, breaks over Navarre. Violet Sorrengail, tempered by flame, blood, and sacrifice, stands at the threshold of a world reborn, knowing that sometimes the only way to save a realm is to become its living legend.